Hey everybody, welcome to Buffalo After Dark. We're actually on episode number 15. And of course, we got our usual crew in here. We got our nice little guy, Bobby Hansen, here from the Buffalo Podcast in the middle of Long Island. How's it going?
I'm fantastic. How are you tonight?
Doing good. And then, of course, our guy from Atlanta, we have Bubba Matt. Sean, how's it going?
Not much, man. And as you guys can see, I've rebranded. And, I figured it was only a matter of time before I had to make a change. And I'm just sitting here wondering what is going on with our bills, man.
We'll figure that out.
Yeah, well, we're trying to figure that out. And then, of course, we got our friend of the show, Ryan Coggill. How's it going?
Good. How are you guys?
Hey, not bad. It's only been a couple weeks since we were on here, and last time we were on the show, we were making fun of Toronto and Columbus for their really stupid picks in the draft, which we'll talk about that a little bit later. But, of course, here we are, October 20th, the Hot Box tonight, the Bills, and do the Bills actually believe in defense? Because let's just say the last two games we've had, Tennessee absolutely annihilated us, and then Kansas City, we played like crap. The run defense was absolutely horrible. And I guess my first question I have to ask is, how the hell do you allow 460-plus yards of offense against you?
I have no idea. Literally no idea.
Oh, I'm trying to think of it. And, there's been some reaction where people are saying, oh, well, we got to fire McDermott. Oh, we got to fire Leslie Frazier. I'm like, no. Why? Frazier said they got to stay the course. Sure, maybe adjust some things on defense, and it doesn't help that some of your best players are out. But, come on.
They need to adjust a lot of things on defense, especially on run defense.
Yeah, run defense has been brutal for a while.
Oh, gosh, man.
I think it had – there's a million things, and obviously, I don't think that accountability is necessarily one of them. I know that we had this discussion the other night. But I think that there's a number of things that go into this. One, you're looking at up till week 5, our combined – or the combined record of everybody that we had beaten up to that point was oh man, I'm trying to think of it right now off the top of my head. It was 15-11 or 15-13 or something like that. And so Buffalo has a top 5 hardest schedule in the league coming into this year. Josh Allen, up until this last game, was still playing with the brace on his shoulder from that hit that he took a couple of weeks ago. Tremaine Edmonds obviously was still playing with a brace on his shoulder up until last night. Matt Milano is out again, but that's a conversation for another time. And then you also have to take into account the fact that we were game planning for both the Tennessee Titans and the Kansas City Chiefs within the same week because Kansas City destroyed the entire NFL schedule heading into week 4. So I don't think that the answer is necessarily, this player or that player or, a lack of coaching or something like that. And then also to point out, Starr is way more important to the run defense than we had initially anticipated, or that not initially anticipated, but that a lot of people viewed him as. And then you also sit down 2 starting players as well heading into the Kansas City game. So there's a bunch of different things that go into it. I don't think that it's necessarily, like Tom was saying before, I don't think that we necessarily have to fire the coach or we have to trade anybody. I'm sure that we can make upgrades at different points throughout the season. Obviously, the trade deadline hasn't hit yet, but there's a number of factors. Some of them have to do with the team. Some of them have to do with coaching. Some of them just have to do with the fact that we simply got screwed over by the Tennessee Titans heading into week 5.
Listen, I hate making excuses for good teams because, let's face it, Buffalo is a good team. But Leslie Frazier said something really interesting earlier today, and he stated that they've been in this adversity before in 2017. But the difference between 2017, that's 3 years ago, compared to now, everybody has higher expectations on you. And I'm not one of those people that'll blame injuries because that's kind of childish, to be honest with you, to blame injuries on a team's loss. Because if you're considered a Super Bowl contender, you're projected to have just as much depth as any team on your roster. You can play with adversity. My biggest issue is accountability and execution. And I've said it all morning on Twitter. And I've sent it out to all of the media outlets in Buffalo, but it doesn't seem like anybody picked up on it because, well, they get hundreds of thousands of comments. And my tweet this morning was, my biggest problem is accountability. I feel it's execution from coaching this year. Neither coordinator is clicking and might be time for change. McDermott is being too stubborn and loyal towards Frazier. When will it time for him to take away the playbook? So if you recall, last year and the year before, Sean McDermott had a little bit of a feud in terms of the chemistry and scheme with Leslie Frazier. But I'm starting to think in the back of my mind, it's not even about the changes in terms of scheduling, because I understand where the Bills are at. But to accountability, good teams like the Titans and the Chiefs and the Ravens, if they get blown out like that, which the Ravens did, they've already went through this. You never heard once say anything about injuries. They don't take moral victories, and neither should the Bills. The goal is to get to where you want to be. They're going to win the AFC East. They're going to host a playoff game. But it's all about the moving parts. They don't have the fire that they did last year. Bill Phillips, no Lawson, no Lorenzo Alexander. And we're looking at a bunch of fat fucks that's on the front seven that can pressure the quarterback. And you're talking about Quentin Jefferson. You're talking about Vernon Butler. You're talking about all these, culprits, misfits from the Carolina Panther days that just come in and they've done almost literally to nothing. And it's embarrassing that we're even having this conversation and people are jumping the wagon already saying get rid of Josh Allen, because I don't think that's fair. But when you look at a team like I said before, the Ravens and the Chiefs, when they go through adversity, they didn't panic. They came up with a plan and they said, we got to be better. We got to fix this. And that's what they did. And I understand where the argument comes from, because the Bills are a team that just won't quit. I mean, they didn't get blown out by Kansas City like they did the week before against the Titans. They clearly were not prepared for it, and they were completely just uncomfortable being in Nashville to begin with. And then they're still debacled by this whole COVID shit. It's like, why are we still talking about it?
Very true. And I mean, if you look at how the Bills played against Kansas City last year, I mean, they played them pretty close. I mean, it was only a 3-point game at halftime, which is very much the same as what we had last year. And then the second half is where basically the run defense got destroyed, and that's where everything went wide open. I mean, especially some of the plays you look at with Mahomes, and the fact that, I mean, not only was he connecting really well, but their running game just kept pounding the ball time and time again. I mean, there was that one play actually later in the game where it was 3rd and 12 and they had that conversion. So, I mean, stuff like that, when you have 2nd and long, 3rd and 12, and when you go into those situations, I mean, your run defense has to do something. And, of course, I mean, yeah, it was raining out. There was bad weather the entire game. So you have to kind of plan and adjust for that. And I guess my concern is that with what we saw with what we saw Monday night, and then also even last week prior, I mean, Tennessee, okay, whatever happened. I mean, Tennessee's on a roll right now. But at the same time, it just seemed like there was no answer to combating the run defense with the running game. I mean, there was no answer whatsoever. And I mean, at the end of the game, sure, was the game closer than what it really was? Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a 26-17 loss, but I mean, that's the issue. So then one of the things I'm looking at today is there were a couple stories that came out where should we go after a couple players? And one of the names that ended up coming up was Sheldon Rankins, defensive tackle out of New Orleans, where CBS Sports was reporting maybe trade him for a 5th round pick in 2021. And then there was also the thought about possibly going after Clay Matthews, a free agent linebacker, to possibly help Tremaine Edmonds for a while. So, I mean, those, if we can make that happen, or I wouldn't be opposed to it. I mean, it would be some upgrades that we could work with, but we've got to get an answer on this defense. Well, the other thing is we have to get healthy too.
That's very true.
So here's what I was talking about before. So Pittsburgh, obviously being still one of the undefeated, one of the 3 undefeated teams currently in the league. Not this previous week, but going back a week, their opponents' records combined was 3-15-1. Again, going back, not this week that we just played, but the previous week, Kansas City's opponents had a combined record of 11-13. Titans' combined opponents' record was 7-12, but Buffalo's combined opponents' record was 13-11. So again, Buffalo has one of a top 5, if not definitely a top 3 hardest schedule in the league. And as Bobby pointed out, the Ravens just took a staggering loss, but the Ravens have one of the easiest schedules in the league. Now, also saying that, Pittsburgh has literally the second easiest schedule in the league. Pittsburgh and Baltimore have the two easiest schedules in the NFL for this season. So you can say, okay, well, look at Pittsburgh. They're undefeated still, but okay, they also have been playing 3-15-1 teams with a combined record. Of course, they're going to be undefeated at this point when we're playing teams that are 13-11 heading into the previous week. I mean, we're also playing Tennessee, who is a AFC pretty much rival at this point, that we've been battling against for the last couple of years. They've been getting steadily better. And then you're playing the defending Super Bowl champions while also coming off, again, a week where you had to game plan for both of them because of the issue with the Tennessee Titans and COVID. So again, I'm not making the argument that, hey, this is a moral victory of, we were close, it was only a 9-point loss, blah, blah, blah. It was definitely a winnable game. Hands down, the at least the Kansas City game was a winnable game. By all means, it was a winnable game. So that one, shouldn't be taken as some sort of a moral victory. The Tennessee Titans game, I have absolutely no answer. But again, when you're looking at it, you have to look at more than just, this is who we have, this is what we should be doing, and really look at more in depth. What is the schedule strength, comparing it to other teams in the league? Again, Pittsburgh undefeated, but they also have the second easiest schedule in the league right now, and they have good players on their team. That's not to say that we don't have good players, but that's also not to say that we couldn't afford to upgrade at different places. Defensive line, offensive line. I don't really see – I've seen a bunch of people talk about upgrading at wide receiver. I don't really see where that's even a top 5 issue for this team right now.
No.
But I'd like to get your guys' yeah. So I don't know why that's even in the conversation, but definitely offensive and defensive line, I'd like to see some sort of a upgrade at. But I don't agree. I'll finish up with this. I've seen a lot of people talk about putting Jake Fromm in. Again, Josh Allen is not the issue here at all. So I don't understand where that narrative is necessarily coming from.
Yeah, I mean, definitely taking Josh Allen out, no way. No way I would do that. Not in 100 years. I would not do that.
No, but let me ask you this, Ryan. Why should we consider that Chiefs game a quote-unquote moral victory? Sean McDermott came out earlier today and said there are no more moral victories.
No, I didn't say that we should consider it a moral victory. I said that was certain. I said we shouldn't. I said it was a winnable game. We lost it by 9 points. It was 100% a winnable game.
That's true.
I don't think that there's a moral victory for or some sort of moral victory reasoning for either the Tennessee game or the Kansas City game. Tennessee game, I knew going into it probably wasn't going to be pretty and we were probably going to lose. I was more concerned with that, again, because of Tennessee is kind of under the radar good against run defense. I know a lot of people – I know that they're down more in the league, but they're actually pretty good against run D. And then, of course, they just have what's his face?
Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry, thank you. I wanted to say Hunter Henry for some reason. I knew I had
No.
Derrick Henry, and so they just ground and pound the ball. So I knew that the Tennessee game wasn't going to be good, but again, the Kansas City game certainly winnable by again, it was a 9-point loss, certainly winnable. There were points there, or there were points there where we were ahead in the beginning of the game, and then points there where we could have gotten ahead once we were behind. So certainly Kansas City, neither one of them had anything to do with moral victories. I agree with both Bobby and with Coach McDermott. There is no such thing as that in the NFL, but Kansas City, more so than Tennessee, was a winnable game.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, if you're going to be a good team in the NFL, another complaint I've heard, other than the whole Josh Allen thing and Jake Fromm bullshit conversation, the other argument I've heard is that if you look at the Bills, the record that they have in the last 3 years since McDermott has been the coach, they have a combined 3-15 record, and that's concerning to me. It's 3-15 against teams that are above 500, which is a big concern. And the only one, honestly, that they were able to get through that made the playoffs last year was Tennessee. And then people will say, oh, it's because it was Marcus Mariota. I'm like, who cares? They still played a good, stellar defensive game. But the question now is, I understand it's still a little early. We're already halfway through the season. But you have to remember, the trade deadline is next Thursday, and the Bills have to do something about that defense because there's no way that this team is going to win anything with the way they've been accommodating lately. So my guess to you guys is that should Brian Dable and should Leslie Frazier be held accountable for their incompetence lately?
Yeah, they should
They-
certainly, as the coordinators. Sorry to cut you off, Tom, but as the coordinators, they should certainly be held accountable. I think possibly, and we saw this happen last year with Dable. Is the fix possibly putting them up in the box so that they get a better view of the game? Is that I mean, that seemed to fix the issue last year, midway through the year and closer to the end. So is that possibly something that we should be exploring first before getting into the conversation of, let's, cut our losses with this guy and bring in the next guy? Because Dable's name, both Dable and Frazier, but more so Dable, their names have been considered for head coaching hot seats that are going to become available at the end of this season. So is it possible that we just need to throw them up in the box and that'll either expose them as being bad coordinators and bad coaches? Who knows? But I think that was something that we explored last year. I think that that's something that we should certainly be exploring now again before going, we need to, move on from Dable and Frazier. I mean, there's nothing wrong with changing things up every once in a while. And I think that this team adapts well to that when given the opportunity to.
Right. And I think if they're going to do that, they should at least put them up, like you said, put them in the press box. But I think it makes more sense to put Dable up in the press box than it would be for Leslie Frazier, because Leslie Frazier plays with a completely different scheme, and because he's a defensive scheme coach, it's kind of impossible to kind of really figure that all out in the box seats. But if you're an offensive coordinator, you can see the field better. You can see where your receivers have to go. You can see where your running backs have to go. There's a lot of issues on this team that's been completely exposed. And a lot of people are now just looking at Buffalo as a above average team. And that's not where they want to be, of course. Nobody wants to see the Bills where they are. And people had high expectations for them this year. And the fact that we're still here talking about this, about them being somewhere in the middle, I don't know if I'm ready to label them as a middle-of-the-road team, because this could very well be a down year for the coordinators, and then they could go right back up. Because, listen, we went through this shit before as fans. We saw this last year with how good the defense was. It was top 5. Everyone said with that defense, Buffalo was going to be Super Bowl contenders. And that everybody had the expectations for them to do better this year, which clearly is not the case. And then the offense would be the step forward. And now, if this continues down the trend, people are going to start asking, is Josh Allen the answer? I still believe he is, but, it's more going to be on Dable and Frazier for their incompetent, shitty play calling. Because if you notice lately that they've been doing a lot of short passes and they've started to use more of the running game, and they kept using it over and over and over again in Kansas City, and it just was not working. And Singletary has been downright terrible this year, as well as everybody else. I mean, Allen's had a great first half, and we're always at the halfway point where it's like they have to step up. And Josh Allen has admittedly said multiple times, I have to be better. I have to be the guy to lead the team. And he's right. He's putting them behind his back. Same with Stephon Diggs. But the thing is that everybody has to play the role of the offense. The offensive line, too, has been another issue.
Yeah, very true. And and the biggest concern I have on the offensive line right now is the run game. Because, if you look at what Singletary's been doing, he hasn't been performing. If you look at everybody else that we have, they just have not shown up. And last year, at least you had Frank Gore, who could partner up with Singletary, and at least you had a reliable back that you could go to. But of course, he's not here anymore. He ended up going to the Jets. Oh yeah, by the way, we play the winless Jets next Sunday. So at least that should be all right. But the run game, that's a huge, 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 huge issue right now. And especially if the mindset that we have is that we're going to be a run first team and then rely on the quarterback. Right now, it's not working, so you have to change it up. It could be a situation, if you remember with the Colts when Peyton Manning was playing, it was typically, he could mix it up on the fly. Typically you could go run first, pass second, or primary passing game against a team that absolutely had horrible pass defense. So you have to be able to adjust on that. And right now, Dable's not doing that. Let's look at Kansas City yesterday. He did not have an answer for their defense. He had absolutely zero answer. And if you think you're gonna keep running Singletary up the middle and getting crushed, and if you think that a 5-yard pass is gonna be exactly what to do. I mean, that's not the case. I mean, finally, when Josh Allen was able to connect with Diggs and when he was able to connect with Beasley on that touchdown pass, I mean, finally, it's like he unleashed them. But it's like you gotta be able to let Josh play the game and do what he needs to do. It's just the play calling absolutely sucked Monday night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dable's even said, I have to be better as a coordinator.
Right.
Yeah.
But
And so when it comes to
Dable gonna get?
Yeah, but here's who we got next for our next 4 games. Yes, we got the Jets this coming Sunday, which they're definitely a winnable game. But then you got the Patriots at home, which I know they got a losing record right now, but you never know with Belichick and all that stuff.
Mhm.
But after that, you got the Seahawks at home. Our next biggest test of the season. How are we gonna adjust to them? And then we got the Cardinals on the road. So we got 2 division games, then the next 2 on the against NFC West teams that are really, really good. We somehow, some way, we gotta adjust something to get to be ready for all of that, man.
Well, so I think here's what I have to say to that. I think when it comes to the question of the running game, I think we're seeing the same thing that we saw towards the end of this year last year, which is the misuse of the running backs. I know not a lot of people pointed this out, but you saw last year, you saw Gore going on outside runs and Singletary going on interior runs. And it was almost the exact same thing last night. Zach Moss has been compared to Frank Gore, to Marshawn Lynch as a guy who can punch the ball up the middle, but Zach Moss was running it to the outside and Devin Singletary was being sent straight up the middle, as Tom pointed out just a couple minutes ago. So I think that needs to switch because when Singletary is going up the middle, I think, and somebody can fact check me on this, but I think he had like 3.8 yards per carry was like the average for what it was up the middle. So obviously I think that's the main issue with the run game. That's not to say that Singletary can't go up the middle because we've seen him do it and we've seen him, and he had good plays last night where he went up the middle and got the first down or moved the chains closer to the first down line. So I think that's the answer when it comes to the run game. Now, to what you guys pointed out with the wide receivers, it seems like he being Josh had a bigger connection with Beasley last night than almost any other receiver that was out there on the field. I know Croft caught one for a first down. Diggs did catch a couple, but he was overthrowing Diggs. He was overthrowing Brown on multiple long distance passes. Tom, to your point of comparing Josh to Peyton Manning, I think that's exactly what everybody is waiting for. Somebody like Peyton, somebody like Brady now in Tampa, Eli Manning, players that have been veterans out on the field calling their own plays, being able to see what the coordinators have not been able to see. I think Dable needs to let Josh do that a little bit more because we saw Josh make the adjustment last night. I think there was a big tipping point for him and for the game. I think the offense started to perform better at that. Now, here's what I have to say about our upcoming schedule. The Jets, we certainly should win against the Jets.
That's a win. I don't even count that as a game. I count that as a bye week.
That absolutely needs to be a win. If it's not, then there are deeper issues with this team than we initially anticipated.
Yeah, there's no excuse that we shouldn't be 5-2 after this Sunday.
No,
Absolutely.
no.
They're gonna win regardless.
When it comes to the Patriots, that's certainly a winnable game, but also each and every single week, every game is winnable, every game is losable. But that should also, again, based on the record, based on the play that we've seen coming out of New England so far, that's certainly a winnable game for the team that we know can exist for the Buffalo Bills. Now, when it comes to the 2 NFC teams, I'm honestly more concerned with Arizona than I am with Seattle because it seems, just based off this past week, that the answer for Seattle's offense has been unlocked, which is putting double coverage on Lockett.
Odds Ultra Oxy, 1-ups the.
Sorry. Is putting double coverage on Lockett, and then, DK Metcalf not necessarily being that primary target and Russell Wilson being able to switch over to DK Metcalf being that number 1 target, because that offense got shut down last week. Now, here's what I have to say about their defense. Their defense is a tire fire. It is honestly a lot worse than a lot of people are realizing. They were giving up, I don't know what it is now, But I know through like the first 4 or 5 games of the season, they were giving up 300, 400 yards, specifically with, I don't know if that was combined or if that was just for the run. But they were giving up, 300 to 400 yards on defense. So if we can get our offense going, we can get our run game going, we can connect better. Or if Josh can connect better with the receivers against Seattle, I think that's certainly a winnable game because their defense is not that good. The issue is our defense has to lock down Russell Wilson and the receivers. That is absolutely 100% the answer to beating Seattle because, again, they are not entirely a good team. The reason that they're winning games is because Russell Wilson is willing them to win games, which is essentially what Josh was doing his first season in Buffalo, was willing the Bills to be winning games. So I think that that's the answer when it comes to that. However, I think when it comes to our offense, and we were talking about, trades and player acquisitions, do you guys think that we have a starting tight end on this team currently? Do you think that Croft potentially could be that? I mean, he's been on the field minimally, but he hasn't played that horribly. Whereas we have Knox, who's not catching balls. People really don't put Sweeney in the conversation, and Smith is more of a blocking tight end. So do you guys think that Croft could fill that role, or we should try Croft out at that role, or do you think that we should be trying to trade for somebody that's out there right now? Because it seems like tight end is the biggest need when it comes to upgrading player personnel on offense.
I'll let them go first.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a good point that you bring up. And actually, I did pull the Seattle Seahawks stats up here. So basically right now, the Seattle Seahawks are allowing 471 yards a game against their defense. And right now, if they continue on that pace, they're going to have the worst yardage against them ever in the entire NFL. They're actually looking at, on this pace, allowing 7,539 yards. And the only other team that's ever done that was the 2012 New Orleans Saints, who allowed 7,042. So basically, their defense is getting torched. I mean, there's no question about it. And and basically what's happening is Russell Wilson is saving their ass along with their offense. That's all that's happening. They don't have the Legion of Boom anymore like they had.
Touchdown. Yeah, he's willing them to win because he's throwing 5, 6 something touchdowns a game. I mean, Carson, being their number one running back, was injured earlier in the season. So again, it seems like the answer got found by putting double coverage on Lockett, and then Wilson didn't make the adjustment to throwing to DK Metcalf as his number one primary target. So again, I'm way more concerned about the Cardinals because Kyler Murray is accurate. He is fast. He is small. He is mobile. They have good receivers. They drafted good receivers. They traded for good receivers. They also drafted and have had great running backs as well. Kenyon Drake had an explosive game last week. So I'm way more concerned about the Cardinals. And honestly, if we lost to the Cardinals, I wouldn't be surprised. But again, a 4-2 Buffalo Bills when we have a top 3 hardest schedule in the league is not that concerning to me. At least right now, I don't think I'm at I'm not at DEFCON 4 or DEFCON 1, however the DEFCON system works.
Right.
I'm not at the highest alert level yet. But again, if we lose to somebody like the Jets next week, I think we'll all be singing a very different tune on the next episode.
Yeah, if we lose to the Jets, that's a problem.
Yeah, I don't see them losing to the Jets. I mean, they clearly beat them in the first week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for real.
The Jets have done absolutely nothing since.
Yeah, but regarding to Ryan's question about tight ends, I'm going to say if anything they should do, it's not just the tight ends I think they should really consider looking at. I mean, I think they will get a tight end because I don't think at this point Dawson Knox is not a number one tight end. That's pretty obvious. He can't stay healthy. Tyler Croft is a serviceable tight end, but he's not a starter. And Tommy Sweeney is being treated like a practice squad guy at this point. So really, what the hell are they going to do here? And I'm pretty sure, too, that Brandon Beane's very aware of this. So if I'm being very optimistic about what they should be doing here, I think they're going to go for a trade. I think if there's anybody available they should talk to that's available for trade is go talk to the Browns about David Njoku, who has barely been given a chance. And I think if he were on a rolling team like Buffalo, I mean, remember, this guy was a first-round pick. So there's a chance that he could be traded to the Bills for maybe a fourth or fifth-round pick, depending on what the Browns want for him. And then right after that, and as well as that, too, I think they should also look into trading for a defensive tackle. Like, Tom said earlier, get that guy from New Orleans. I also would suggest maybe going talking to the Bengals about Geno Atkins. He's clearly not happy, and he wants out of Cincinnati. So I think if maybe you can get yourself Geno Atkins for maybe a second and a third or whatever the price cost could be, Buffalo should go into deep, deep discussions with both the Browns and with the Bengals to address both of their needs. And then after that, I think either in free agency or in the draft, they should consider looking at cornerbacks to pair up with Tre'Davious White.
Yeah, okay. So I have two things, and I'll let you guys say what you need to say, and I'll shut up. One, the talent level from Tre'Davious White to the cornerback 2 slot is like the Grand Canyon. The talent and consistency level is just non-existent. Levi Wallace has been inconsistent, was majorly inconsistent last year. I was hoping that would have changed going into this year, and we haven't really been able to tell that because he's been injured, and he's now an injured reserve. Josh Norman clearly has not been the second complement to Tre'Davious White that we were hoping he would have been. And EJ Gaines, obviously one of the few players that were on the team that opted out in the season. I'm not going to throw some guy who should be on a practice squad next to Tre'Davious White. That's just not fair to him. That's not fair to the defense. So I wholeheartedly agree with us going almost defensive heavy in the draft or in the upcoming draft, if not trading for a cornerback. Now, Bobby brought up draft picks. And this is what I have to say to pretty much everything that we have been talking about. I have never been a believer in the 3 years and out mantra of, I know it exists in the sports world, but specifically when it comes to Buffalo sports, I have never been one of those, like, you need to be winning a Stanley Cup or the Lombardi within 3 years or else you're absolutely trash and it's never going to work out. We need to move on. Because we've seen that has absolutely destroyed any sense of stability or consistency in the Sabres organization, which I know we're going to talk about later tonight, so I won't get too deep into that. What is important to keep in mind is, yes, we have veterans on this team, but we also have a lot of young guys. Depth, starters, practice squad guys. They are all very young. We don't really count, or we really shouldn't count the first year when we made the playoffs, because we had a different quarterback, we had different systems, we had different players. Almost no player that was on that team then is almost here now. So really, I've never been one of those 3 and out type people. We need to be patient. I was not under the assumption that we would be Super Bowl contenders this year. I thought, we should definitely be winning round 1 of the playoffs. We should not be first round exits, but I was never under the impression that we were going to be beating Kansas City or Baltimore or Pittsburgh, if they keep rolling on the way that they're going, in the AFC Championship to get to the to get to the Super Bowl. So I think people need to take a breath. I understand that we are starved for any sense of playoff winning, but I think a lot of people need to take a breath and realize this is a young team that still is going to take time to develop and mesh and get together, because we will be signing more people in free agency. We will be drafting more people in the upcoming draft. We will be trading for people before the deadline, hopefully, and then in the offseason. So take a breath. I don't think Bean and McDermott are on their way out this year. I think Josh Allen is the answer. I think we have a lot of the pieces that are here. It's just going to take a little bit while more, because you also have to weigh it against the fact that teams like Kansas City do exist, that teams like an offensive heavy Seattle do exist in the league, right? It's not just us. There are other teams that are also good that we have to compete against. And so we need to be at the same level, if not higher than them. So we will get there. We will get there with this team. We will get there with this GM and this head coach. I am absolutely sure of it. But if it's not this year, it's definitely next year. All right, I'll shut up now.
But the thing is, though, go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
No, yeah. What I was gonna say, I mean, talking about Tennessee, Mike Vrabel's done a great job overhauling that team ever since he took over, and quietly he's been really improving that offense and defensive line, and it's really taken after him. So I totally see Tennessee doing a lot over the next several years. They're going to become a tougher team to play, and that's just going to be the way it is. With New England, they always play tough. So regardless of them being under 500 right now, Belichick always has an answer to something. Regardless if he cheats or not, he has an answer to something. So he'll figure that out. Talking about David Njoku, absolutely, I would target him in a trade. He would be an instant upgrade at the tight end position. He'll give us additional depth. He would be a starter. I totally think he could come in, fit in the system pretty well. And then the other thing that's actually interesting is with John Ross wanting out, and the New England Patriots are actually targeting him as a wide receiver. I guess my question would be, do we go after John Ross, deepen what we have right now at this point, or do we just go with who we have?
What's the point? Why do you need another receiver? That's the least of the team's issues.
Well, true story. I mean, I'm just thinking more on a depth perspective. I mean, potentially, but really the biggest thing I would want to target is a tight end. I mean, that's where we definitely need some help.
Yes, I agree with that. But they also need help on defensive tackle. They need someone who they could trade for as a rental for 1 year. It doesn't even have to be the biggest name in the world. I'm fine with that. Mm-hmm. As long as somebody who could stop the run, because that run defense has been absolutely fucking garbage since that Dolphins game.
Absolutely, it has been.
Yeah, they need. Yeah, I mean, for real on defense, they have got to give. They got to get Trey White and Tremaine Edmonds help, especially for Tremaine Edmonds, man, because with Matt Milano being out, I mean, in my opinion, that really hurts our defense. But I'm not saying like one man, like one guy defines an entire defense, but Milano has been a really great help, man. With him being out, I feel like Tremaine Edmonds is pretty much trying to figure out the run defense by himself, basically. So so I feel like he needs the most help there.
Yeah, Tremaine was essentially filling like 3 roles last night. He was covering people like he was a DB. He's trying to figure out and stop the run defense in like a linebacker position. He's like trying to fill out like 2 or 3 different roles at the same time. It's definitely not fair to him. The other thing to remember about Tremaine though is he's 22 years old. He's the same age as me.
Yeah, I mean the guy needs help, man. He needs to go back to outside linebacker. Get it? Like we need a good middle linebacker that can help him out. You know?
Yeah, like my biggest concern about this middle linebacking core are 2 things. As great as Milano is, do they give him a short-term deal or a long-term deal? I feel it's very, very risky if they give him a long-term deal. Because what if he doesn't pan out after that contract and then gets injured all the time? And that's another problem is Milano is always hurt. He's injury prone. And he's the best player on the team this year.
Yeah, that's I don't think that the issue with Milano would be that he gets a contract and then starts to regress. I think my issue with him has been the fact that he is injury prone. I mean, he almost completely he broke almost like his entire leg or whatever it was the last season. And then he was out with an ankle injury earlier in the year, and then it came out that he had torn his pec, and that's why he's out again now. So my issue with Milano is that he, again, seems to be very injury prone. I don't think it would be an issue of regression, but I would go jump on the bandwagon of he needs a short-term deal because we don't know how often he's going to stay healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like as much as I like Milano, honestly, man, at this point, it really pains me to say this, man, but I feel like he's being with his injuries. I feel like he's becoming a liability now.
Yeah,
you know.
Cleaning powder.
It sucks to me to even say that because I like the guy. He can play, but all these injuries, what else can he say about it?
Yeah.
You know?
Right. I mean,
there's nothing to say about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, he's hurt, plain and simple. And in a lot of cases like that, I mean, you look at other players that have run in that situation. I mean, RG3, perfect example. He was hurt after that 1 season. Where's he been? He's done absolutely – his career went to hell after that, thanks to Mike Shanahan.
Yeah.
Oh, moron.
Yeah, but But Tom, that situation was very different than the one that Matt Milano was in right now, or Tremaine Edmonds for that matter.
True.
Because you guys have to remember something. Tremaine Edmonds is basically playing on one arm. Because Leslie Frazier has said it from time again and again and again and again that Tremaine Edmonds has been injured with a shoulder problem all season since week 2 against the Dolphins. Yep. He sat out. He came back against the Rams, and everyone says, get him out of here. He's useless. He's garbage. No, he's hurt. There's a reason for it. Right. He's still a good linebacker. Yeah, There's no question. But he's playing, like you guys said, he's playing 3 different positions. Right. And that alone is not fair to him in that perspective. So, I mean, you're not going to bring back Lorenzo Alexander, even if the Bills call him and say, hey, Zoe, can you come back and play for the Bills for half a season? Tomorrow, it's not happening. That's number 1. Number 2, if you want to get someone like a Clay Matthews as a depth piece, I'm on board for that. I'll gladly take
yeah, I'll take Clay Matthews any day.
Yeah, he's available. What are they waiting on? Why are they waiting for him?
Go get him.
I don't know.
Go get him.
Pick him up.
So the thing about Lorenzo is that he did say that he would come back, and that he was staying in conditioning himself to come back if they absolutely needed him to. But like you said, Bobby, I doubt that they want to call him back. But to Bubba Matt's point, I agree with you. It just shows how important Lorenzo was as the middle, basically holding the linebacking core together.
He anchored that line.
How important he absolutely was. And it shows us that in this upcoming draft, I think we're going to go very defensively heavy. We're going to go for linebacker. We're going to go and grab a cornerback higher up in the draft than we did in this past year, because we need that talent at linebacker. We need that talent at defensive back as well.
Yeah, I mean, if freaking Marshawn Lynch can come out of his first retirement, why can't Lorenzo Alexander do the same? You know?
I think there's bigger issues on this team than people realize. Like, it's not just, oh, Josh Allen sucks. No, Josh Allen does not suck. It's what's the word I'm looking for? Execution. That's the word I'm looking for. It's execution. It's accountability. And I've said it from the beginning of the show that Leslie Frazier and Brian Dable both need to be held accountable for their play call. Brian Dable at least said, I have to be better. Leslie Frazier, on the other hand, is it's like Jekyll and Hyde right now. And it's like one guy says he has admitted, I have to do what's best for Allen. He'll be fine long term. Frazier is still coddling this fucking problem, and he's just too oblivious. He's like, we went through adversity before when we went through those 3 games in 2017. Who cares, Leslie? That was 3 years ago.
Right, we're in 2020 now.
We're talking about 2020. There's a good fucking reason that this guy is being pissed on by the media. There's a reason that everyone wants him gone, okay? If anybody with a brain knows that Leslie Frazier did not make the play calls last year. It was Sean McDermott. Okay?
And that's why the defense played.
Defense is very conservative on defense with McDermott playing the calls. Leslie Frazier, ever since he was named assistant coach back in May or June, whatever that was, completely catastrophic his role as defensive coordinator. I wouldn't care if he was an assistant coach, but as a defensive coordinator, you need to find someone else. He's too inconsistent. He's not holding accountability like he should be. He's an NFL coach. He was a head coach like a half a decade ago with the Vikings, and there's a reason why he got dropped off.
Yeah, I was going to say, look at the Vikings record under Frazier.
They were horrible.
Yeah. They had no playoff appearances.
Good gosh. Like, McDermott just needs to take back the defense. That's what I'm saying. He needs to take it back.
Right, or bring in a coordinator that he's familiar with. Hell, bring in somebody from Carolina he's worked with.
Oh, no more Carolina outcasts. Get someone who actually has a defensive mind. Somebody who's conservative, somebody who is disciplined, because that's another problem, disciplinary. They're not holding accountable for these penalties. They keep making at least 9-10 goals a game for penalties. It's hurting the team.
Dude,
I'm glad you brought that up.
Oh, man. Freaking AJ Epinesa, I don't know if it was him, but somebody had, like, back-to-back penalties. I'm like, dude, are you kidding me?
Yeah, the Tennessee game.
Oh my gosh, man.
Right. And then look at some of the penalties against Kansas City. I mean, Trey White. I mean, what are you doing?
It's Stephon Diggs. What was he doing walking back when they were trying to hurry up?
Right. I mean, when you're taking those personal foul, unnecessary roughness penalties, 15 yards apiece, come on.
Gosh, man.
And then everybody was saying, oh, Stephon Diggs is a diva. Hey, the dude's a bitch. Maybe he was concerned by this point that the game was pretty much over, and he knew full well they were not coming back. There was a chance of that was probably the probability, at least from what the clock was managing to be by that point.
Yeah, but in either case, though, I mean, you can't be giving up that much yardage, especially against a good team. I mean, and the thing is, we can play fairly well against those good teams, but we have to we have to be good on the discipline, and that hasn't happened. Same thing happened last year against Kansas City, where basically we ended up shooting ourselves in the foot because we kept taking penalties all game.
They didn't play Kansas City last year.
Or, I mean, the last time we had played them.
Yeah, that was like McDermott's first year.
Years ago.
I might be thinking Baltimore then, but.
Yeah, Baltimore last year. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was Baltimore, not Kansas City. But yeah, like I said, this team has a lot of. I would say they're good problems. They're not critical problems. They're good problems to have going forward. It's always good in life to have problems and then having to later solve them. But the only thing that holds you back is if you're too ignorant and you're too incompetent and you're too stubborn, like McDermott is, to fix those problems. Because the word trust the process is now getting really fucking annoying, especially with the fact that he's not unwilling to make any changes to the staff. I assure you, I mean, if you watched that press conference from earlier today, you could tell that Sean McDermott was just not having it. He was very upset with yesterday's performance. I guarantee you that. He was making it short term. He was just babbling things out of his ass. And someone even asked him, why is Trent Murphy being scratched? And the guy's making $9 million as a pending UFA. And he says, I have no comment. It's a term of play, not about money. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I mean, if you're scratching Trent Murphy, chances are he's probably going to get traded.
Wouldn't surprise me if that happens, but.
Listen, if the Jets could trade Steve McClendon, a 34-year-old, there's no issue that they should be trading Trent Murphy at this point. Trade him into a team that can use him.
Yeah, absolutely. Get value for him.
I mean, at least for the Bills at this point, a lot of their UFAs are off the book after this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure Jerry Hughes is on that block.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
At least that's what I'm not sure. It's either this year or next year.
Who knows?
Cool stuff.
I'm just sick of this, tired of this shit, guys. That's all I'm just saying. I'm really tired of the idea that that the Bills have this many problems. I mean, I'm confident they can get over it, but they have to fix it fast before it becomes a bigger problem than it already is.
Right. I mean, the schedule's not going to get easier the rest of the season. I mean, you're going to be playing the Patriots. You have Dolphins coming up, which, I mean, that team can go anywhere.
Miami can play.
Yeah, they can definitely play. And then, I mean, with Tua now, that's going to be interesting seeing what he does later this season because, of course, now he's the man down in Miami. So, I mean, with him running the ship. But, I mean, the Cardinals, I mean, you look at what they've been doing out in the West. I mean, they've quietly been building a really good team over the last several seasons. So, I mean, and that goes all the way back several years now. So that's a huge thing. Then, of course, I mean, we look at the rest of the schedule. I mean, the way it's set up, of course, we're going to be playing the Jets next week. Then we have the Patriots, the Seahawks, the Cardinals, the Chargers. They can play. Then you have the 49ers. I mean, even though they're having a down year, they still have some good offensive weapons, and they still have defense that they can work with. Then December 13th, you have the Steelers, and the Steelers are always a tough team to play. I mean, especially now they're going to be playing here in Buffalo, but if it was in Pittsburgh, I mean, that's a tough place to play. Then you have the Broncos. They can do a lot of different things. Then you finish out with the Patriots and the Dolphins. So, I mean, it's not an easy schedule the rest of the way.
No, it's not.
No, and again, I think going back to what we were talking about before, obviously you have your star players, right? You have Josh Allen at quarterback, you have Tre'Davious White at cornerback, you have Hyde, you have Poyer, you have top names on this team. And then there are places where you can see, again, like myself and Bubba Matt were talking about before, cornerback. The talent level after Tre'Davious White is just absolutely non-existent. So there are places on this team where you see that there needs to be an upgrade when it comes to depth, and then there are places where we're starting to see that now. And again, I've never been the 3-and-out type person. I
Me
don't
neither.
want Bean gone. I don't want McDermott gone. I think that he's a great head coach and a great GM, and they've put together great staffs on both ends. Again, I think it's just going to take a little while more. I mean, we've gotten to the point again. The first year was defensive. The second year was offensive, and this last year we saw a lot of moves that went for special teams. And I think going forward, they have those mainstay pieces, and we're going to be looking at depth now for literally all of these positions. And so I think they're going to be way more active in free agency. I think they're going to be way more active in trading again, like Bobby was just talking about. You have a lot of guys that older veteran guys that you're going to be able to trade along with draft picks. And maybe some younger third string practice squad guys to get middle of the road in terms of age wise, if not younger guys that can fill out depth wise. I think Christian Wade is gonna make his way onto the running back roster next season. I think that you're going to see more out of Singletary and Moss. So I think within the next year or two, we're going to have that depth team that we're currently lacking right now. But that is not to say that we shouldn't be winning against Kansas City. Again, winnable game. We have a championship caliber team. I know that was last year's thing for the Bills was championship caliber. So, please don't demonetize us or whatever or come after us for using it. But the team is there, at least at the surface level. We now have to start looking depth-wise. Again, free agency, I think they're going to be way more active in. They're going to be way more active in trading. I think they're going to be way more active in taking people off of other practice squads. And again, I think that they're going to go pretty defensive heavy in the upcoming draft, but I think that you're going to see literally picks for all positions, special teams, offense, defense, as well. So I think that this upcoming year or two, it's going to be all about depth.
We'll see how it accommodates. That's definitely for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And then for anyone that's watching, of course, right now, we definitely do have people seeing us live on Facebook. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to jump in. And as we finish up hour number 1, go to hour number 2. We're going to change up some stuff a little bit. We're going to have some fun with the NHL draft because this was actually one of the things that for everyone that turned in that actually watched the show a couple weeks ago, we actually did 4 straight hours of the draft. And,
that was fun.
Oh, that was a fun show.
I did not. I was smart and dipped after the first hour.
Oh, God. And I have to say, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to make fun of the worst picks of the first round today. So.
Oh, goody.
Yes. So, but before we do that, though, the Sabres actually made a good move. They actually signed Taylor Hall to a 1-year deal, about $8 million.
Well,
I have no issue.
Well, who wants to go first? Who wants to go first?
I guess.
Well, let's give you the honors, Bobby. Go for it.
Fuck! Okay. All right. Where do I begin with this? Okay. So, if you remember, 2 weeks ago, right, that's when free agency started. Everybody was thinking that, because there was ties of Tyler Toffoli, Mike Hoffman, and there was a possibility the Sabres can get both of them in the beginning of free agency. And I'm like, wow, the Sabres can actually do something big for once in my pathetic life. So, we're waiting on Friday, Saturday, and they do nothing. And then all of a sudden, we see them getting depth piece like Tobias Ryder, Matt Irwin, Brandon Davidson. I complained about it on my channel.
Yeah, Cody.
And then Cody Eakin, who people have said, oh, that's a terrible signing. The Sabres are going to suck, and Jack Eichel wants out. And then all of a sudden on Sunday, and it was really strange too because I was with my fiance. I went to my parents' house, and my sister was there with her kids and all that. We were having fun, family, whatever. It was my brother-in-law's 39th birthday. So we went over there. We had a good time. And then around 7 o'clock, just when the party was about to end, my friend Rob in a private chat, who some of you may know, he was in our draft special, that guy in the Devils jersey, he sent me a text, and he said something, and I thought it was a joke. And he sent me a text, and it says, the Buffalo Sabres are expected to sign Taylor Hall. And I said to myself that I looked down on my phone, and I'm like, are you freaking joking? Because I'm just sitting there, I'm thinking, oh my God, the Sabres just got the best player available in free agency. And then they give him a term for 1 year, $8 million. I said, that's awesome. No risk involved. It's not like they gave him a monster contract like the Calgary Flames did for Jacob Markstrom, or like with next year or next whatever. The summer comes around when the Vancouver Canucks expose Brayton Holtby to go to the Seattle Kraken, like those kind of terms. Like everybody's signing 1 year deals, 2 year deals, 3 year deals. Some are signing 6, 7. You know what I'm saying? Like the thing about this signing to me tells me that Kevin Adams did not sign Taylor Hall. It was Ralph Kruger. And clearly, if you saw the Inept episode of the Sabres edition, you can clearly hear the audio. And it said that Ralph Kruger was impressed with both Taylor Hall and Jack Eichel, and he was intrigued by the idea, put the two of them together. So it's just like, let's do it. Let's give him a 1 year deal. And if he's extremely happy, we'll give him a term in Buffalo for 3-4 years. And if it doesn't work out, you get some ransom picks for him or assets or whatever you want to get for him. Yeah. But I think in general, though, now when you look at the Sabres top 6, they have a pretty legit good top 6 right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they made some massive improvements with that. And I mean, Taylor Hall, I mean, who would have ever thought that we would be signing him to a 1 year deal over here? I mean, a lot of people probably would have laughed their ass off and they would have said, oh, yeah, it's not going to happen. Well, guess what? It did happen. I mean, and you look at what Taylor Hall did. I mean, if we look at last year and how he split time between the Devils and Arizona, it was not his best year. I'll be one of the first to say it. He did not perform to his standards, but he is a former #1 overall pick. And I look at what he did back in Edmonton. He has the potential there, and he has gone ahead and he has won some games. He has worked with Ralph Kruger before, and he enjoyed being coached by Ralph Kruger. And I still think even to this day that Kruger got the short end in Edmonton because of how everything went. Then of course, look what happened. They ended up getting Dallas. Well, they ended up getting. I'm trying to think, what was that coach? Dallas. Crap, I can't even think of the name right off the top. But
Dallas Eakins?
Yeah, Dallas Eakins. And what happens, I mean, he just turned the whole team to hell and he was out of there. So, I mean, the fact that now you have
Taylor
Hall, you have Jack Eichel, you have Eric Stahl that they brought in the offseason.
And what we fucking do, you got Eric Stahl in the middle.
Yeah, you got him in here. I mean, you look at Skinner, you still have him. Cody Eakin. I mean, you have a legit top 6. You have 2 legit top scoring lines at this point. And now you finally have some depth to go with it. That's huge. I mean, that I will say, I still not hot on the pick of Kevin Adams being a GM. I still think we should have gone outside the organization. But to be able to bring in Taylor Hall and do these types of signings, I'm okay with it. I think it's a pretty legit upgrade.
Again, Kevin Adams is not the one that made the signing. It was Ralph Kruger.
Right. And Ralph Kruger has a very good hockey mind. We all know that.
Well, yeah, it's not his fault, honestly.
It's his game. So the fact that we were able to go ahead and do this, I mean, I like where we can go with it.
I mean, never in a million years would I think Taylor Hall would want to be a Buffalo Sabre. And it's really funny. I saw this about a week ago. 3 kids, when Taylor Hall was a rookie, came up to him and said, yo, you should go play for the Sabres. And Taylor Hall was just nodding when he was a rookie. He's like, yeah, cool, I might. And then here we are 10 years later.
Exactly. I mean, and the fact that now we can use that to build what we needed. I mean, we needed scoring and we needed offensive help. I mean, we needed to get additional depth on the forwards. Here you go. I mean, great move.
And so when you look at where Hall's been, I mean, before McDavid, it's hard to remember that once upon a time he was the original Connor McDavid. He was the Edmonton poster boy for the rebuild, and he really, I mean, even still today, McDavid does not really have the talent around him that McDavid needs, that really Edmonton needs. To be the team that they want to be. And then obviously last year on paper, the last few seasons, on paper, the Devils have looked like a really good team and then ended up being the bottom feeders of the NHL, almost as bad as Detroit, and so that's not to say that Buffalo isn't in the same situation. I mean, we do have talent. We have guys that support our goal scorers. We have guys that can set up plays. We have guys that can score goals. But I think that Hall is in a better position in Buffalo than he ever was in New Jersey, than he ever was in Edmonton. When you look at the talent that was on that team, as you pointed out, we have no idea if he'll play on the same line as Jack Eichel. He could end up running his own line. He could be, one of the things that we pointed out last year is that Skinner's play took a dramatic dip when he wasn't playing with Eichel. Now, granted, he was playing with essentially fourth line guys on the second line. And so to Tom's point, they signed a lot of depth. We have, to Bobby's point, we have a legitimate top six now. Eric Stahl is older. He's not playing as well as he used to. Cody Eakin isn't that, amazing of a player either, but it's different. Sabres fans wanted change. They wanted rapid change, and they got it. They got depth in Rochester that's not purely developmental. They got guys that can put pucks on the net and in the net to win games. And then they brought in guys that give you a legitimate, second, third, and fourth line center. So we have the centers that, Sabres fans have been asking for the last 2 years. We have guys that can legitimately play wing and complement the guys that we have in center. It seems like now, at least again, like we were just talking about for football, on the surface, we have the guys that we've been waiting for. It really just looks like we need to go do an upgrade at goaltending. But I personally don't think that that'll happen for at least another season from what we have now. But I think that the Taylor Hall signing is absolutely what this organization needed. I think that's what the fan base needed. It's just, obviously, again, like Bobby pointed out, he has that history with Kruger. And I like Kruger as a head coach. I don't have any real major issues with him, but he obviously had that relationship with him before, but Kevin Adams is the one that, ended up having to make the call, and it was his call as to whether or not to bring him in. And so I like the working relationship that we've seen with Adams so far and Kruger, but I mean, really, I don't have an issue with anybody that Adams drafted. I don't have an issue with any of the signings that he's done so far. So, I mean, so far, so good. Again, they haven't taken the ice yet, so it's really hard to judge how well it's going to pay off, but I don't have a problem with anything that's been done by Adams so far.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if we're looking at it deeply here, I still believe they got to make a move for a defenseman, if not better. Because I've actually just read that Brayton Wilson on Twitter said that due to economic reasons, there's a possibility that they could still trade Rasmus Ristolainen, and then yet they can also trade with the Columbus Blue Jackets to get Jonas Corposel, because they were one of the two teams, one with the Ottawa Senators, to get Matt Murray, and obviously they did not get Matt Murray, so they had no other choice. So they had to go out and find someone else. So that maybe, and this is my theory, I believe that if they were to trade Ristolainen, you could get a ransom of picks back for him. I mean, I'm not saying he's a superstar, because he's really not. I mean, he's a good serviceable defenseman, but he's not like, oh my God, I have to have him. He's not that. And they should have done that 3 years ago. But I'm just saying, on the contrary, that if they're going to look to upgrade the goaltending, your best bet is to talk to Columbus about Jonas Corposalo and see if he's available. Or talk to another team for a goalie, because Buffalo cannot go into next season with Carter Hutton and Linus Ullmark. It's just not a good tandem with the two of them. And clearly, because Hutton is absolute ass, and I think any fan will tell you that. Linus Ullmark, I mean, he's good, but he's not a number one. I'm sorry. I think anybody who likes Ullmark as a legit franchise goalie, you're honestly mistaken, and you're just being fucking stupid. Because it's like relying on fucking Jake Fromm to be your starting quarterback after Josh Allen. I mean, what contrary do you get out of that?
Well, so my reason for saying that is we're looking at a flat cap possibly for next year due to COVID, right?
Right.
Hutton only has a year left on his contract. It doesn't make – I mean, his cap hit for buying him out is small. I think it's only like $1 million or two, between $1 to $2 million. It's small, but when you're looking at the fact that you're going to be – you don't already have a lot of money, and you're looking at Jack Eichel, you're looking at a possible Taylor Hall extension, you're not really going to be that receptive to spending $1 to $2 million to buy out Carter Hutton. So I absolutely agree with you. I'm not saying that they don't need to upgrade. I think that financially it's in their best interest to let Carter Hutton's contract run out at the end of next year and then let him go. Now, that being said, I think that we're moving away from – I think the NHL, not just the Sabres, I think the NHL overall is moving away from the format of naming a starting goaltender. And, I mean, we've seen Buffalo do it for the last couple of seasons, flipping back and forth every few games with who's starting in net. So I think that I think the NHL in total is starting to accept that format because we've seen other teams also start to do it last season as well, where they're putting, the one goaltender starting for a few games and then another goaltender starting for another few games, and they keep switching back and forth. So I don't think that we necessarily need Ullmark to be a franchise starting goaltender. He just has to be serviceable for a few games before he gets sat and the next guy gets put in.
I don't know. I'm just not a fan of the whole Carter Hutton should be staying for one more year thing, because then what's the point? I mean, Elliot Friedman already stated a while back that the Sabres are indeed looking for a goalie in the trade market, and that's the only way they're going to do it. I mean, the Leafs already said they're done with free agency, so that's their problem. They have no money to spend. I mean, let's face it. Thank you, Toronto. I want to give them a round of applause for taking our shitty players. Jimmy Vesey did nothing. Zach Bogosian did nothing. Wade Simmons did nothing. So now you're getting 39-year-old Joe Thornton on your roster, and he believes that he's going to win the Stanley Cup. Good luck, Joe. I love Joe Thornton. Don't get me wrong. I love Joe Thornton.
Me too. I love Thornton, but he ain't winning with the Leafs.
No. Definitely not.
Right, and especially with dumbass running the team over there with the
my favorite thing about Joe Thornton thus far is that he says that, in quote, that the reason he went to the Leafs, and I swear to God I laughed my ass off when I heard this. He said directly, in quote, that the reason he went to the Maple Leafs is because he firmly believes that Freddie Anderson is a #1 caliber goalie in the NHL.
He's not.
Like, really? I would have understood if he went to, like, a 2-year deal with, like, Washington or whatever, with Toronto. Seriously, if he was on a 2-year deal, put him in Seattle. I mean, Sean would be jerking off in his couch right now saying, "Oh, Joe Thornton, give me your fucking beard. I want it all over my face."
Or hell, even get them to the Caps, and they have a legit shot at winning the Cup.
Yeah, but in all jokes aside, I do think, though, the Sabres will make a trade for a goalie, but they're going to have to trade Ristolainen first. And then when Seattle comes around, I would not be surprised one bit if the Sabres were to expose Kyle Laposo.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a perfect cap dump right there. I mean, especially knowing that that's going to be coming up in the season. So, I mean, that would be perfect to see that. But overall, I mean, they've done a pretty good job with filling in some depth over this offseason. Now it's just a matter of they have to go forward. They have to get that goalie. Once they do that, then, okay, we're in better shape. I mean, we still have Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen in the system as well. So let him continue to develop, because eventually I still think, based on what I've seen and having been at 2 rookie camps and watching him play, I do think eventually he will be the #1 goaltender of this team.
Maybe. I probably agree with you. I mean, Hutton is just washed up at this point. There's no purpose in him being on this team whatsoever. But who the hell do we know? We're not NHL GM people. We're just 4 idiots who just deal with each other, and we all just make out once a week on the internet.
Yeah, exactly. We just say what we think. Whether you like it or not, we'll give you our opinion.
Yeah, really. Like, thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, exactly. But let's get to some fun stuff on this too, because I know we talked a little bit about the Sabres, obviously, of course, and the NHL draft. That was a fun show that we had, and let's make fun of some picks here, because there were a couple that really stood out. Bobby, I'm going to let you do the honors with the Chicago one in a moment, but let's start with Toronto, number 15 overall, Rodion Amirov, who basically was ranked between 167 and 182. He gets picked 15th overall. And here's the thing. Toronto could have picked a big defenseman that they actually needed, and what happens is dumbass over there decides to basically draft almost all small forwards again, who are only between 5'9" and 6 foot and weigh between 150 to 180 pounds. Dumbass, what are you doing?
Don't worry about it. Let him get fired. I'm not worried about Dubas. The Leafs are just a joke at this point. All right. You're pretty much strapped in cap hell. You have no money to flex with, and then on top of all that, you're paying 4 contracts to 4 guys. You have no defense and you have no goaltending.
Right. I mean, you have Austin Matthews, John Tavares, to name 2 of them right off the bat, and you've got a crap ton of money tied up in them.
Mitch Marner, William Nylander, and it's funny too because the Leafs are actually talking about trading one of the 4.
Right, which that'll be interesting because then if they end up trading Marner or Nylander, they're basically screwed on that.
I've heard they might trade Nylander more than they would be leaning towards trading Marner. I mean,
Well,
one
that
way
would
or
be,
another, they
that
have
would be
to.
if Dubas is smart.
Yeah, but the problem is too is Bill what the fuck is his name? Bill Daly, the deputy commissioner. He said just last week that going into next year, if a team is over the cap, like say the Vegas Golden Knights, who are over $6 million over the cap, they have to dump it before the start of next season. And if they don't, then they can't play.
That's interesting.
Well,
Or NHL could always do the luxury tax, but
they could do that, but it's not really that critical at the moment because of COVID. But you get the point. But sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
So I was just going to say when it comes to Toronto and their need for a defenseman, I mean, Toronto was the number 1 place that when we were talking, well, not we, but when anybody was talking about Alex Pietrangelo, the conversation was Pietrangelo and Toronto, right? It was like everybody was just like, that's where he's going to go. Toronto needs him the most. He's the best. And don't get me wrong, I like Pietrangelo. I've been a Pietrangelo to Buffalo guy for a long time, knowing full well that that's not going to happen. I'm a fan of him as a player. But obviously, I think what happened was that Toronto threw all of their eggs in one basket, and Pietrangelo ended up going to Vegas, which I don't think anybody really saw. I never heard. I didn't see or hear anything of him in Vegas being in the same conversation. Pretty much everything I had been hearing for months and months and months was Pietrangelo is going to hit the market, and Toronto needs him the most, and Toronto is going to do whatever it takes to get him. I think that they added Bogosian because they thought, hey, we can throw a bigger guy like Bogosian in here, and then we get Pietrangelo, and he can score some goals on our defensive side, and then they ended up not getting him. So I think the mistake was that Dubas threw all of his eggs in one basket, and it ended up not, the chicken did not come home to roost in Toronto, and Pietrangelo ends up in Vegas, putting them over, the cap, like we had just mentioned. So, again, yes, they took VZ. They took, he's not really our former player, but former Tampa Bay Lightning player and Stanley Cup champion Zach Bogosian as well. I think that they screwed the pooch essentially when it came to their defensive woes. And I think, we were talking about the draft before. I think it's easy to say, hey, you needed a defenseman, you didn't draft a defenseman. But again, the NHL is not the NFL. Even if you drafted one at what were they, 15? I think you said that they were.
Something like that.
So even if you draft one in the first round, chances are, they're not going to be on the team for a year or two. What are the chances that they're going to be a starter? It's so hit and miss when it comes to the NHL draft. And drafting younger talent. So, I mean, it's probably smart he didn't go draft one in the first round, but it also could come back and bite him in the ass if there was a defenseman that was taken beforehand or after them that ends up starting within the next year or two. And that'll certainly come back to bite him in the ass, but, it's going to take us a year or two to see.
Yeah. And actually with
We'll find out eventually.
Yeah, definitely. And even with Pietrangelo going to Vegas, I mean, I'm looking at Vegas's roster right now. They have a pretty good roster overall. I mean, when you're looking at their forwards alone, I mean, Patrick Brown, William Carrier, you have Reed Duke, then going through the list even more, William Karlsson, Ian Kolsar, Peyton Krebs, Jonathan Marchessault. And then going all the way through, you have Alex Took, you've got Mark Stone, Paul Stastny, and then now Petrangelo being part of it, and Ryan Reeves, and Max Pacioretty. I mean, they have a pretty damn good team.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of conflict with Knights fans saying, oh, they're not happy with the current front office with just dismantling everything. Because you have to remember, in order for the Knights to get – I mean, about Ryan's comment about the whole Alex Pietrangelo, the Vegas thing, that was not surprising because I've heard his name come up with the Vegas Golden Knights in recent rumors and like 3 weeks leading up to the free agency market. I've heard more about it like during the Stanley Cup playoffs, particularly the finals, but I knew right there and there that he was not going to Toronto. I knew for a fact he was going to Vegas because St. Louis did not want to pay him $8 million per year, but the offer that they were going to give him was $7.7 million. Vegas gave him double of what they were going to originally offer. That's why he took the contract from the Golden Knights.
Money talks.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And plus, you have to remember, Vegas is a very hot, attractive city for most players. Just like New York.
Yeah.
Just like Toronto. Just like Los Angeles. Any big name city, Chicago, you name it. Mostly New York, Vegas, LA, Toronto, you name Montreal even. Those cities are going to buy money, and those are big brand teams. I mean, they're not all great. I mean, Vegas is amazing. They're already heavy cup favorites. Tampa Bay is an instant cup favorite. Who else is in this conversation? Hell, the New York Islanders are already even being.
Islanders are definitely in the conversation now because of how they've done the last couple seasons. I mean, they're getting there.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm an Islander fan as well, but like the fact that they got that far was just outstanding. And they're trying now to make moves to go to the trade market for Patrick Laine, but we're not here for that. But the point I'm trying to make is Alex Pietrangelo went to a market that was just clearly attractive to him, and he went to a very good team that he could potentially win a cup with next year. That team on paper is unstoppable. Now, I'm not saying that Vegas will not win the cup, but I do believe that they will get to that point eventually. It may take a little extra time, but the Vegas Golden Knights in general are a very good team, just in general.
Yeah, they've been since day one.
And it's funny, one of my groomsmen that's coming up in my wedding 2 years from now, my buddy CJ is a huge Vegas Golden Knights fan. And that was before they took anybody. That was before they took Marc-Andre Fleury. He was a fan since the day they took Calvin Pickard. Okay? I'm just going to put it out there.
Yeah. And I'll say this, honestly, I would love to see a game in Vegas at some point. I really would love to see a game there. I mean, well, I would love to see football in there now too, since they have that. But I mean, the thing that's interesting is Vegas versus Arizona. Vegas is definitely the hockey city over Phoenix, Arizona.
Well, obviously, I mean that's not even a competition at this point. But what about Seattle? Like that's going to be an interesting market. As I have convinced Sean to be a Kraken fan, I have convinced him.
Yeah.
That T-shirt I bought him a couple of months ago.
I think, honestly, that market's going to do really well. And here's what I kind of look at: you're going to have Seattle with the rivalries. Seattle and Vancouver is going to be a natural rivalry from day one because, I mean, the two cities are only a few hours apart from each other. I mean, they're super close. That's going to be a big rivalry in the Pacific over there. Then you also have to figure Seattle and LA. That's going to probably be a good rivalry, and them in Vegas probably too. But I could definitely see some wars happening with Seattle versus Vancouver, kind of back in the day when you had Montreal versus Quebec, and the two teams would go at it. I mean, nonstop. I mean, them two would battle to the death, basically. I mean, those teams always beat the crap out of each other back in the day.
Yeah, let's see what Sean says. What do you think, man? Like, with Seattle coming in a year and a half from now, with Vegas being a cup contender, how do you think that's going to impact you?
Oh boy. I mean, if Vegas can have success in their earlier, like in their inaugural year, I mean, I don't see how Seattle can be any different because a lot of people are going to be looking at Seattle. So pretty much. So I feel like some pressure will be on Seattle because of Vegas' success in their first year. So, hey, maybe they might make it to the playoffs. Who knows?
I would not be shocked if the Golden Knights. I mean, not the Golden Knights. What am I fucking talking about? The Kraken. Thank you. I would not be surprised one bit if the Kraken got Brayden Holtby. I would not be.
Be a great pickup for him.
Absolutely. That's why there's a reason why you got a 2-year contract.
Not to take away from the hockey conversation, but I did just see this tweet about a former Buffalo Bills wide receiver, Robert Foster, is going to the Washington football team on their active roster. So he finally gets a home after leaving Green Bay. So good for him.
Fuck him. He sucks anyway. Anyway, so fuck him. He sucks anyway.
That's a good way to put it.
Fuck him. That's what I was just gonna say. But anyway,
I guess continue on your point.
Anyway, so I think Sean brings up a great point. If Seattle can have success like Vegas did, why not? I would totally support Sean in this case if Seattle was built like Vegas. I would be on board with them 100%. And I'm not saying I jump on the bandwagon because I didn't do that for Vegas. And it wouldn't make it any different for me with Seattle. But I would say I would no doubt root for them if the Kraken make the playoffs. And I definitely think they can if they built within the right system. If it all comes down to the coach, it comes down to the players, and it comes down to the GM. And GM is a Hall of Famer in Ron Francis.
Right.
So, and he built a good Carolina team. So I'm not going to take anything away from him.
Yeah, I mean, look at what Ron Francis did with Carolina. I mean, he's put that team in a position to where they can finally have some legitimate success going long term, and that was something that Carolina didn't have before. So, I mean, after they did the complete rebuild and everything that they changed up, I mean, they're in a much better spot now than where they were a few years ago. So, I mean, that's huge. But one of the things I also look at is, especially in the South, though, don't ever count Nashville out because, I mean, they've had stable management over there, and I totally look at them to take another run at going for the Cup. And honestly, I could see them winning at some point in the near future, too.
Nashville. I mean, I like Nashville, but they're done. They're done, in my opinion. They're done. Their days are done. But, hey, I'm glad that fucking whatever his name is, Ryan brought up. I think it was he said something about the jerseys, but like, oh no, it was me. I said to you earlier on the show that I wanted to show you guys something, and I said to Tom, if you're gonna show this to the public, the least you could do is screen share it. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna send you the link now, and I want you to just take a look at this.
I'll bring it up.
And by the way, before I tell you what it is, these are jerseys, and I said it before the show too, is everybody's getting it, including the Colorado Avalanche. And I just want to say really quick that Nathan McKinnon posted the leaks on Instagram of neon blue, like bright blue, like this, but much brighter, like baby blue. I want to say baby blue, like gloves, right? Just blue and white, like your background, Tom. But he pretty much confirmed the Quebec Nordiques are coming back to the NHL.
I would love to see that team back in the NHL.
Well, I would love to show you.
Them in the East.
Yeah, I think it's important I show you this because I think that with everything being said and done, it's pretty important I show you this because this conversation has been coming up a lot lately. So I want to show you the gloves. But before I do that, I want to show you what I'm looking for. So what the NHL is doing, and these got leaked by IceTags.com. So if any of you out there who are watching the show who have never heard of IceTags, it's a website that you can look up on and Twitter, and they leak out logos, they leak out jerseys, they leak out everything they can get their hands on. And an article came out just either yesterday or today that the NHL is planning to bring back retro reverse jerseys. And these are not fan service jerseys. These are jerseys that teams are going to be wearing at least once throughout the entire year. And 2 jerseys came out. One was with the Penguins and one was with the Flyers. So I'm going to show that to you guys now. I'm just saying it to Tom.
Okay.
All right. Now, I want you to put this on screen share for your reaction first before you see it. Cool. And I don't know, Ryan, if you saw this or not.
Oh,
I'm going to go ahead and share it.
Feast your eyes, motherfuckers.
Well, there's nothing on the screen.
You'll see in a second.
There you go.
Look at it.
So what does it have to do with Quebec coming back?
What I said was Nathan McKinnon leaked out gloves, like hockey gloves, of baby blue and white gloves that represent the Quebec Nordiques. And he pretty much confirmed that they're going to be bringing back the Quebec Nordiques to the NHL. And I actually have the picture right here, believe it or not. Let me get that for you guys. And this
So
is
by bringing them back, though, do you mean like wearing the jerseys in the NHL? Or you're trying to say that Nathan McKinnon, who is a player in the National Hockey League, accidentally just leaked that a new franchise is coming back to the league?
no, like think of it like what the Coyotes are doing with the Kachina jerseys. That's exactly what the Avalanche are going to do. They're going to bring back the Quebec Nordiques.
That would be a great thing to do because, I mean, the thing I'll tell you is that I remember growing up, one of the things that I would always see Hockey Night in Canada, because we get the Canadian stations here, that was huge watching Quebec Nordiques games. I mean, that was one of the things you would always see, whether it was Toronto versus Quebec, Montreal versus Quebec. Montreal versus Quebec, I love that rivalry, and I miss that rivalry because that was one of the absolute best that the NHL had at the time. And unfortunately, just with the economics at the time, the Nordiques ended up moving to Colorado. But I would love to see a team back there at some point.
Yeah, but you can clearly see those are baby blue gloves.
Yeah, and that is definitely Quebec Nordiques colors.
I told you.
Yeah. Well, so you had mentioned it. I googled this, and there's an article from April 18th of this year that talked about how COVID presents an opportunity for Quebec to possibly get the Nordiques back. Obviously, again, Quebec, Hartford have been fan favorites for places to go back for many, many years because they had previously hosted NHL franchises. But the article is basically saying that because of COVID, it's going to be really difficult for teams that are cash strapped and struggling prior to COVID. Like I think they mentioned Arizona, Florida. But the NHL is going to be unable to help them going forward due to the lack of revenue generated because of COVID, which again, hit us pretty hard in this last year. It could potentially affect the NHL for a second season going forward. And so they might, the NHL might have to talk about moving teams like Arizona, moving teams like Florida to places that have already hosted NHL franchises because they would be NHL ready. Of course, obviously, like we've been talking about, Quebec has been talking about this since they pretty much lost the franchise.
Yeah.
So, they really want a team back. And again, like you guys said, places like Hartford, places like Quebec that have had franchises before, they do have a pretty sturdy fan base. They're pretty much loved throughout the NHL. We know that Carolina brought the Hartford jersey back last season too, which I enjoyed seeing. So, I mean, who knows? COVID could possibly allow us to see those franchises come back again.
Yeah.
But in terms of actually bringing Quebec back, actually bringing Hartford back, I think that's a slim to none chance as an actual real franchise because they would be much smaller markets than the direction that the NHL is looking to move to.
Yeah, I mean, even with Quebec, I mean, they've done a couple of things in the last several years. I mean, and actually, I'm showing this on the screen now. They have a brand new NHL-ready arena, 19,000 plus seats. That's ready to go. I mean, that was one of the big things that they had. And the way that they have it, they sell out the entire place for Quebec Major Junior Hockey. I mean, it's hockey is huge up there. And apparently the upper deck is so steep that they have to have railings in every single row. Otherwise, you're going to literally like fall flat on your face. I mean, the way that place is set up, it reminds me of the old Odd, where that upper deck that I've sat in before they tore the Odd down, the upper deck was so steep that literally you felt like you were going to fall on somebody in front of you. I mean, it was just absolutely great with how the sight lines and everything were. But I'll tell you, I mean, they are absolutely big into their hockey over there. And, I mean, they just do so much. So, would it be great to see a team there again? Absolutely, yes, it would. I would love to see it. They support their hockey. They love their teams up there. That fan base would love the NHL coming back. They have a place that's ready for it because the old the Colisée de Quebec was falling apart. So why not bring it back? I mean, the team should be successful. And here's the thing, Quebecor, which is one of the biggest media operators up in Quebec City, they've already put in where they want to buy a franchise, and they have the resources to do it. It's kind of like, if you remember with, like the best way to describe it, with MSG, how I think it was either Cablevision or someone owns that franchise. They have the resources. There's no question about that.
Yeah. I would love Quebec to get a team back, but I think it's nice that the Avalanche are acknowledging, and let alone the NHL is allowing teams to bring back, in quote, reverse retro jerseys, like the Coyotes, the Whalers, the Nordiques pretty soon. The NHL is turning into the modern vintage, as I like to call it. I like it when teams in the modern NHL are bringing back older versions of their jerseys, like Buffalo or the Islanders, the Flyers, the Flames. You name it, someone's going to do it. I'm not saying everybody, but I think most people will look at that and they'll say, wow, the NHL is attracting fans. We should jump on the bandwagon. And I think teams across Major League Baseball are starting to do it. The Mets have vintage jerseys. Fucking the Yankees, the Red Sox, those are just vintage.
Pirates too.
And the Pirates, yes. But you understand my point, though. At least that's what I'm hoping to get from you.
Yeah. I mean, they're paying homage to their heritage. I mean, that's a great thing.
The Ottawa Senators just did it just recently with the black 90s jerseys from 30 years ago.
Yeah. And those are pretty cool jerseys.
I hate the team, but they're getting better and better. And I appreciate the reborn of the rivalry. And it's been really bad between the two for a while. But I think between Buffalo and Ottawa, that rivalry is going to be stellar like that. Yeah, I firmly believe that's going to be the case.
That'll definitely be nice seeing that again because, I mean, the two teams have hated each other since day one. And, I mean, as to your point, I mean, the last several years, there really hasn't been much going on. But to see it starting to come back and both teams, moving forward, it'll be a great rivalry. I mean, even, like, to that point, one of the things that I don't know, Bobby, if you'll ever remember this, but back in the day when the Quebec Nordiques were around, they were one of the biggest rivals for the Sabres. And there were huge games that we had against each other. I mean, especially a lot of times with the Adams division, all of that stuff. And there was the one game I remember back in 1990, I think it was 91, when Rob Ray actually went into the stands and beat the living hell out of a fan.
Now, I've seen that clip, but I was too young to remember that rivalry between Buffalo and Nordiques. I did not even know that existed because, again, I was born in 1992. So right. When the Nordiques moved, I was about maybe 4 or 5 by the time that happened. So I don't really have any fond memory of that rivalry. But I do remember a lot of the older rivalries from like the late 90s, early 2000s, and mid 2000s, and then 2010s, so on and so forth. You get the idea.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Anywhere from like 1996 to like now is what I remember the most. But I mean, I go back and I watch some of the old rivalries, but I can't firmly sit here like you do and say, "Hey, I remember the Quebec Nordique rivalry with Buffalo." Like I can't say that because I was not old enough yet to remember that rivalry.
Yeah, and I mean, even going back, I mean, I still remember some of the old games that I got to see in the Odd. Well, first off, being in the Odd, that was just freaking special. I mean. And that's where some of my earliest memories come with watching hockey and being able to do that with my family and all that. Especially my dad, of course, which I've said on the show a couple times. He actually played with the Junior Sabres back in the day, and he actually could have gone on to play with the Amherst at a later point. He decided not to, but it was something where I still remember as a kid seeing some of my first games where I got to see Quebec in person. I got to see when we used to have a big rivalry with the Bruins. The Hartford Whalers were a big rivalry back at the time also. And just being able to see a lot of that. And then especially as time went on, when the Ottawa Senators came into the league back in the early 90s, that was huge. So seeing a lot of those rivalries starting to come back, I think is a great thing. But the biggest rivalry I remember was Quebec versus Buffalo. That was, I mean, well, that, and of course, the Leafs in Toronto have always had the Leafs in Buffalo have always had a big rivalry. But the funny thing is, I actually, when I was a kid, I did not even see a Leafs game in person against Buffalo until a couple of years ago. For the first time. I actually had never seen that rivalry in person. The last time I had seen it, it was with our buddy Doug, who's been on some of our stuff in the past. But that was actually the first Sabres-Leafs game I actually went to, was when I got tickets with him. But, I mean, Quebec and Buffalo, that was something I've definitely seen in the past. And, of course, I've seen us play St. Louis and other teams. But, I mean, definitely some really cool old-school rivalries.
That's for sure. Is there any wrestling news we can look up on?
Actually, there is. So this Sunday is Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, and we got 3 Hell in a Cell matches. One is Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton for the WWE Championship. Then you got Bayley versus Sasha Banks for the SmackDown Women's Championship. And the one I'm looking forward to the most, Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso for the Universal Championship. Yeah, whatever, Bob.
Just teasing. I know nothing. I'm just teasing you.
Yeah. I'm sure you are. Anyway, what the reason why I'm looking forward to this one is not only will it be inside Hell in a Cell, but the stipulation is going to be an I Quit match on top of that. So if you put those two together, all hell's going to break loose.
Okay, so I'll throw this out there, Sean. Do you think out of somewhere either Uso's brother assists him in the I Quit match, or do you think that even further out there, do you think we have a Rikishi return?
Oh boy, very good question. I mean, I feel like it would make sense for Rikishi to make an appearance because come on, it's his son, for crying out loud, and to see his nephew beating the mess out of his son like that inside the cell. I wouldn't be surprised if Rikishi even made an appearance. Cause
Is this you, Sean? Hold on. Is this you?
no, but I do know who that is.
Do you now? Who is he?
Shoot, his first name is Ellis. I forgot how. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, buddy. I think he's still on. I think he's still on Twitter somewhere. I'll show you the. I'll show you the. I'll give you the link whenever.
Are you sure that's not you?
Oh gosh. No, because I still got some hair, so. Anyway, so yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Rikishi made an appearance.
This would be the first time in a while if he does show up, because I mean, last time we saw him was a few years ago for a Raw reunion show, and he actually looked in better shape than he ever has.
Yeah. Yep.
So I mean, and of course, everyone knows his ass has his own zip code, so we all know that, according to Jerry Lawler. Which I gotta give Jerry the King Lawler a lot of props though. I mean, he's still in the business 50 years later, and he actually ended up having a match recently. So the fact he's still going after he almost died on Raw when he had that heart attack in Montreal. Oh my God, man, he's still going. That's pretty damn impressive. I mean, he's like 70 now, I think, and he's still fighting in the ring. So give him a lot of props on that.
Yeah,
for sure. Hey, and then and actually what I wanted to do, Bobby, I didn't want you to forget this. You got to talk about the Chicago Blackhawks.
Oh my God!
We got to hit that, and then we got to hit Columbus.
Oh God! Okay, let's start with Columbus, because I have a lot to say about Chicago.
All right, so let's do this. And we were laughing our ass off on the draft show when we had this because there was just no way around it. And I remember the way you said it. It's like, Yegor Chinakhov is like, look it up. Yegor Chinakhov. The dude's freaking unranked, at least in two different spots. He was ranked like 217 on, I think, with like something else on TSN. And then basically, so he was drafted number 21 overall. He was way outside the top 100. He was actually projected in THW at 179, but several of them were saying unranked. I'm like, and we were joking about it as a Taro Sugimoto type player because it's like, this dude's done nothing. There's like no stat, no film, nothing. I'm like, Columbus, what the hell were you smoking when you ended up drafting Yegor Chinakhov, or as we call the China dude?
The China dude? Is that what we call it?
I'm like, what the freak are you thinking, Columbus?
Oh my God, I remember that draft pick, and I was just laughing my ass off. You were in a complete shock. You're like, Columbus, what are you doing?
When I saw it, I mean, it was weird because nobody even had anything on him. The Columbus fans were probably on drugs or something because they had no reaction, whereas Toronto, when they ended up seeing the Emerov pick,
Where's the derp song?
2 seconds.
Where's the derp song? Derp.
Seriously. Well, and that kind of makes me wonder. It's like, what was Kekalainen thinking when he ended up drafting him?
I don't have a clue what he's doing at this point. All I know is with him under the realm as GM, and I get it, he's the first European GM in NHL history. I get all that. But why the hell are you drafting a guy who was not even ranked in the top 100, let alone the top 200, in the first round?
Right. I mean, and literally, he wasn't even ranked in some of the projections, and he would have probably not even have been drafted.
This is just as stupid as when the Giants took Daniel Jones over Ed Oliver. You remember that draft?
Oh, God.
Oh, no. My favorite, along with that one, my favorite one similar to that is when the Eagles took Jalen Hurts.
Oh gosh!
God, I could just picture.
You all know a certain Eagles fan was pissed about that.
Yeah.
Holy balls!
Oh God, I can picture EDP 445.
I heard us talking about downfield and quarterbacks.
Oh.
What? It's like literally Columbus. What the hell were you thinking picking Igor Chinikov?
I could see Sean right now. He'd be like, if he was a Blue Jackets fan, which he's clearly not, he would have been like, "Oh my gosh, I don't even want to talk about it. Can we just, can we just freaking move on?
Well,
I don't want to talk to you guys."
Right. Well, actually, here's what
I'm not a Blue Jackets fan.
So apparently, I did a little bit of more digging on this guy, and I'm still coming up with unranked. His dad actually played for the New York Rangers back in 1991.
Goody, like I'm supposed to give a fuck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Vitaly Chinikov, he actually ended up being drafted in the top 250 when they still went that many picks. He was drafted 235th overall by the Rangers.
Well, the NHL draft was very different back then than it is today.
Yeah, well, it was much longer than it was today, too.
Exactly, that's my point. Nobody gives a fuck about you unless you're past, like, the third round. I'm just going to put it that way. Nobody gives a fuck about you until then. But
Exactly. But dumb pick by Columbus. I'm like, holy God.
I mean, I am not getting over it. If that pick does not pan out in 2-3 years, Jarmo Kekalainen should be fired. He should never even draft again for Columbus to even be in this perspective. I don't care if it was COVID or not. The fact that you took a guy that was way above your draft board is just absolutely astronomical. And it's amazing that Columbus reached out that far.
Yeah. In fact, you know what? If you do a search on him now, you want to see what one of the biggest thing is? SportsIllustrated.com. Who the hell is Yegor Chinikov?
God.
What's the one right above it? The Athletic. He's the ultimate sleeper.
Oh, how? I guess.
TheAthletic.com. No, they're not reliable.
Right.
No.
Right. And, screw that. I'm not paying $1 a month to look at it. Yeah. But apparently, here we go. So, but you can call Chinikov a sleeper, absolutely. Not only was Chinikov the surprise of the first round, but the young man was literally sound asleep in Moscow at the monument, however the hell you say that. Stepped at the moment, Kekalainen stepped up and made the announcement. So basically, when they made the announcement at 9:34 p.m. Eastern time here on October 6th, it was 4:34 in the morning the following day over in Russia.
Lovely. So he had no clue he was even getting drafted in the first.
Now listen, I get it. Again, like we said before, the NHL draft is so hit and miss when it comes to talent because you have no idea if these guys are going to pan out to be NHL level talent. That's the risk that you take when you're drafting somebody at 17, 18 years old. So I would get if you're going to reach into the second round, right? Somebody you have projected to go into the second round because that's the best available at the position that you're looking for, and you're not really looking for, best available talent-wise, and you're looking for a specific position. But to reach to, well, you're in the first round, to reach to 200 ranked or to reach to not even ranked,
Right.
and not even be an ECHL level talent, like this is going to be, they're going to end up playing in the KHL, and they're never going to touch the ice for your organization. And you draft them in the first round, there's probably a problem here. Now, that being said, maybe these GMs are smarter than all of us, and they see something that we don't. Apparently, somebody at The Athletic also sees this and thinks that man is the ultimate sleeper pick. We could all look like idiots, like Bobby said, in 2 to 3 years. Or all those GMs could be out of jobs in 2 to 3 years. Right. So, again, it's regardless of whether it's this or regardless of whether it's a conversation about, Cousins or Quinn or, Perfetti or Rossi, any of these guys that were drafted in the last year or two, obviously we're not going to be able to tell what the value of that pick was until they hit the ice. But I think it's not that far of a reach to go, hey, you were drafting in the mid-first round and you drafted somebody that was ranked in like the 7th round or not even supposed to be in this draft at all and should go in like playing college.
Right.
So
or taking free agency.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I swear, if Igor Shchenkov pans out for Columbus, Jarmo Kekalainen has every right in this country to go around middle of Russia or wherever he's from. No, he's from Finland. Sorry. He could go all around Finland, and he could go all around Columbus, and he can give away the big middle finger to everybody for drafting somebody who was nowhere projected where he was supposed to go.
Right. And, I mean, although Kekalainen did do one thing smart, and that was bring in Tortorella as a coach. So, I mean, which he did improve a lot of stuff that Columbus was sucking on for a while. So I mean, there is definitely at least that part, but still way too much of a reach in the draft for that. Way too much.
But really quick before we move on from this, if that pans out, if any of these picks pans out, that has a larger implication at large when it comes to how NHL teams scout. Because if you're taking somebody that's not ranked or ranked in the high to mid 200s and you're taking them in the first round and they pan out, that has bigger implications when it comes to how NHL teams draft, how they scout. And Columbus, Chicago, Toronto, if any of these stupid picks that they took somehow pan out, everybody's going to be looking at them for how they draft, for how they scouted these players, for how they ranked these players. And, I mean, we're seeing that change now. We're seeing slight changes in drafting and scouting because we're seeing teams taking the best player available at a specific position and not just the best player available. So we're starting to see little changes, but that would be a monumental change. Again, something we're not going to see for almost half a decade. So, again, slowest change in the NHL, but I just wanted to point out that this has larger implications than just GMs being fired or certain people looking like idiots.
Yeah, very
Well,
true.
this is going to be the pick that's going to justify him.
Yeah, I mean, and there was only one spot that ranked him in like the top 35, and that was the EU skaters that ranked him at like 30. But everybody else had him either unranked or in like anywhere between like 179 to like 217. That's where most everything was. So I mean, that was definitely a crazy pick. But here's another crazy one, and Bobby, you got the honors of talking about Chicago making that reach.
Okay, fine. I'm not a Blackhawks fan, but I might as well say, fuck it, let's just do it. All right, so the Chicago Blackhawks made a very interesting statement today, and it was supposed to come out tomorrow, but somebody got their hands on it. And it was an open letter from the Chicago Blackhawks to their season ticket holders. Remember that stunt the New York Rangers pulled a couple of years ago? And they said, dear New York Rangers fans, don't be surprised if we suck in the next couple of years because we plan to rebuild. And we understand this is not something you want to hear, but we're going to do it. And we're going to build the best team we can. And to their credit, what they did was actually really smart, and that was really understandable. It's not like they just suddenly said, oh, we're going to go into a rebuild and suck for the next 10 years. Buffalo never did that. But the Rangers did, and look at them now. They're at the point where they can compete to be in the playoffs next year.
Yeah, they've rebuilt.
That's what I'm saying. And then now you look at teams like the Blackhawks, who out of nowhere came out and said, we're going to just trade everybody away. We're going to retool, and we're going to rebuild entirely. And a report came out after the Brandon Saad trade when he got shipped to Colorado for Nikita Zadorov. There was a rumor going around that Jonathan Taves was not happy, and he almost certain, or at least he's tipping the hat, that he wants out of Chicago. And same thing goes with Patrick Kane. And the rumor is that nobody told either one of them that they were going to be going into a rebuild, and they did not sign up for this. They expected to compete for the playoffs and get ready to win multiple championships. And to Chicago's defense, they won 3 Stanley Cups in the past decade. So you got to give them a little slack. You know, they're getting older. The core is getting older. The team is not the same as it was 10 years ago, 7 years ago, 5 years ago.
Like 3 years ago.
3 years ago, even now. But due to the pandemic, Chicago got where they got to be, and they got smacked by the Golden Knights in the first round. And Stan Bowman's pretty much saying, okay, we're going to just blow it up. Like, how do you expect to do that when you have 2 AHL goalies and you trade away Henry Jokiharju for Alex Nylander, who's been done literally nothing? And then on top of all that, Chicago traded away Brandon Saad to dump cap, and you bring in Nikita Zadorov. Like, what kind of message? Like, what kind of message are you sending to your fans? You're basically trying to piss off Patrick Kane. You're trying to piss off Jonathan Toews. And half of their core is nowhere near the same. I mean, you literally saw Corey Crawford leave last week to go to the Devils. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty obvious to me that Chicago was going into a rebuild.
Right.
Yeah, I don't. So here's my thing. When you're looking at teams like Chicago, when you're looking at teams like Pittsburgh even, how do you not look at those teams and go, they're close to rebuilding or they need to rebuild? I don't understand how you can legitimately look at those teams and look at long-term viability, because the goal is to get to the final round, right? That's the goal is to win the Stanley Cup, get to the final round. How do you look at teams like Pittsburgh? How do you look at teams like Chicago, where the core is old, the players are old, all of their prospects are not NHL level or close to ever being NHL level prospects? How do you look at those teams and not go, they need to be rebuilt? How does Kane and how does Toews look at that team and go, oh man, we're probably pretty close to being on our way out of here because this is not where we were? Again, to their credit, Chicago did rebuild, brought in talent, they won the cups, and then they really haven't done anything since then. They've competed.
Right.
They've been a decent middle-of-the-road team, but they have not been the dynasty that we all thought that they were building towards.
What do you mean not the dynasty they were building for? They won 3 Stanley Cups.
Right. Yeah, they've been in the playoffs how many times?
Right. They won 3 Stanley Cups. That doesn't make them a dynasty. It makes them a very good team.
But to their credit, that's the modern dynasty.
Okay, yeah, you can say modern dynasty, but I guess that would then you would have to have if that was a discussion, you would have to go, okay, what are we outlining as a quote unquote NHL dynasty? But what I'm essentially saying is, how do you look at, how are you Patrick Kane, how are you Toews, and how are you sitting there looking at the team around you and going, oh, like, this is fine, we're gonna be here and we're gonna compete for the no.
That's not what they signed up for.
What do you mean?
What I mean is that when they first got drafted, if you remember, back in the day when they were 18, 19 years old, everybody knew the Blackhawks were going to be bad. And remember, this was before they won their first cup. The Blackhawks had no fans. They also blacked out all their local games back then because of how incompetently poorly run car crash they were back in the day. And then they got Patrick Kane, and then everyone's like, maybe Chicago can actually be something decent for once. And then they went to WCF against Detroit. They lost, okay. Next year, they won the cup, and they got better and better and better and better. So my point is that at 31, 32, 33 years old, Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews, the 2 cornerstones of that team, did not sign up for a rebuild. It's pretty much the equivalent of saying Tom Brady does not want to stay with the Patriots for another 10 more years at 43, 44 years old. I want to go somewhere where I can compete while I still can. It's the same exact thing with Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews. They may want to leave Chicago. Not that they don't want to, but the problem with Chicago is Stan Bowman gave them 2 monster contracts 5 years ago, and they have 3 years left in their current contract, and nobody wants them. And they're both making around the estimate same amount, and it's going to be hard to move them.
Right. Or even if you look at something a little more recently, too. I mean, you remember when Dominic Hasek was still with the Sabres, and basically he wanted out and went to Detroit and win a cup.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that they don't deserve to go somewhere else. Obviously, them being the 2 cornerstones of that franchise has to speak for something, but they signed up for whatever they signed up for. Obviously, it's the GM's fault that they signed them to such a long-term stupid contract. Obviously, you can't tell where you're going to go. But, I mean, if the GM of Chicago wants to implode the team and rebuild, that's what they're going to do. So it's not really up to them. Of course, they can be upset about it, but I'm saying, how do you realistically look at that Chicago team over the last couple of years and go, yeah, this is fine, and this is going to be for long-term success, when you have people like Nathan McKinnon and Jack Eichel, and now Taylor Hall being with Jack Eichel, and McDavid and Quinn and Perfetti and Rossi? How do you look at all this new talent coming into the league and go, yeah, Taves and Kane are absolutely fine in the state that the Chicago Blackhawks is in is absolutely fine, and then not expect to, like, how do you not expect a rebuild to occur is my question, because you're seeing the same thing with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is pretending like everything's absolutely fine, except they've traded away any assistance that Crosby had, and Crosby's getting older now, and that team is getting age-wise is getting older, and they're not getting any younger. I don't understand how Pittsburgh fans and how Pittsburgh as a whole can sit there and look at the team and go, yeah, this is fine. We're going to continue to compete for cups. When's the last time that they realistically competed for a Stanley Cup?
It's been a few years. I mean, honestly, because I do follow the Pens a little bit, and I mean, you look at some of the trades. I mean, of course, Malkin and Crosby are getting older. It is what it is. They've both been in the league over 10 years now. Then, of course, they end up getting rid of Marc-Andre Fleury. They have, of course, Murray, and then there's even talk of getting rid of him now because of the cap. Then you have, of course, other players like Russ, Derek England. When he was with the Penguins, he ended up taking that monster deal with Calgary, and then now he's with Vegas. And then you also look at other players that have had Ali Mata. He was traded. He was actually, I remember being at a Pittsburgh game his first season when he scored his first career NHL goal. And I mean, great player. And then I really think that he's got a great upside. But the thing that I've seen with Pittsburgh, and a lot of their fans don't want to admit this, is that they mismanage a lot of their talent. And what happens is that they keep going on Crosby and Malkin. But I mean, okay, you bring in rental players like Phil Kessel. Of course, he ain't gonna stay. And then they really don't do much to really build that core out and give the support. So I mean, yeah, they're really riding on Crosby, Malkin, and then at the time Marc-Andre Fleury, and then of course Matt Murray. But they haven't done anything really to truly rebuild. And it's almost what I see for them that's going to happen is that they're probably going to go to where it's too late, and they're going to have to implode the entire team and start from the ground up. And, of course, by that point, you're not going to have Crosby and Malkin around.
Well, the same argument could be made for Chicago. That's probably where they're going to end up going. But between Pittsburgh and Chicago is Chicago at least admitted, listen, guys, we hate to tell you this, but we're going to start rebuilding soon, and just expect big news to come out. So basically, that's what they did. They're trying to emulate what the New York Rangers did a couple of years ago, what they did to their season ticket holders. They straight up said that we're rebuilding. And the Rangers at the time, they knew they were going into a decline, and they knew they were going to be bad for a couple of years. And I got to give the Rangers credit. As much as I hate them, I have to give them a lot of credit for having one of the fastest rebuilds in the NHL, without question.
Yeah, less than 3 years.
Less than 3 years, and they're already competing.
And listen, I don't have a problem with when a team goes, hey, listen, we don't think that the direction that we're going in is viable anymore, and this is what we're going to do. I don't have a problem with that. I like that. But I'm just saying, when you're looking at teams like Chicago, when you're looking at teams like Pittsburgh, where these teams are getting old, and that's not to say that older players in this league aren't viable. I mean, another one to throw out there, Boston. I mean, Boston is age-wise beyond old. Combined, they're ancient.
And Chara is freaking ancient.
How do you justify to your fans? How do you justify looking in the mirror and going, yeah, this is absolutely fine to continue to do? So that's all I'm pointing out. And that's not to say that older players in this league don't have a place. I mean, Alex Pietrangelo is not young by any means, and he just got a monster contract to go play in Vegas. I mean, when you compare the NHL and the NFL, players tend to last more or tend to last longer playing hockey at a professional level than most players do in the NFL. They retire once they hit their 30s, whereas you guys have hockey players that are playing late into their 30s, if not their 40s, and then they're going on to play not the same role that they once played. They're more supporting roles versus playmaking roles, or they end up in the AHL in a different role for the organizations. So I'm just saying, there's teams like Boston, Pittsburgh, and Chicago, and I really don't know how you can look at those teams and not go, this needs to change. And I honest to God think that all three of those franchises are at the point where they just need to implode and start over.
Yeah, Sean, what do you think about all this whole story with Chicago, with the Blackhawks? Because this is just astronomical that they just came out of nowhere and said we're going to just rebuild.
I mean, it makes sense to me. I mean, you guys know I don't follow hockey that well, but listen to you guys. I mean, it makes sense. Sometimes you gotta. I mean, sometimes you gotta start from scratch to build yourself back up. So that's pretty much all I can say about this.
Yeah, very true. We did get some comments on the Facebook feed, so wanted to throw that in there right here. And we've actually had quite a few people watching tonight, so thanks to everyone that's been watching so far. Brian Trainer ends up jumping in, and he brought up one thing about the jerseys. He said the jerseys are ugly as hell.
One minute.
Yep. Then he says his favorite rivalry is the Penguins and Flyers, which that is actually a really good rivalry. I like watching those games. And then he brought up this point. Remember Nail Yakupov when he was playing with Edmonton?
Oh, God, yes.
He said, how about Nail Yakupov getting traded for the second or third time now in the KHL?
You're done now. Sorry, pal. You're done.
That's when he was with Edmonton. He was there at the time when they had Taylor Hall, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Jordan Eberle, and then he still couldn't do crap.
Yeah, and then he gets traded to the Blues with guys like Jaden Schwartz, Alex Pietrangelo, etc. Then goes to Colorado for a year with guys like Nathan McKinnon and fucking Gabriel Landeskog and Nico Lantinen, and still couldn't do shit. And now he's on his third team in one season in the KHL.
And God, and of course St. Louis at the time, of course you have to remember they had like Oceans, those other guys. I'm like, holy crap.
That was just
God. How Yakupov couldn't make it with Landeskog and McKinnon and everybody on that team. I mean, Colorado's got a damn good team with forwards. I mean, oh God.
Please do not go to Buffalo or the Islanders in the future. Go somewhere else if someone ever considers your fucking ass.
I know, really.
Well, that's all I'm just going to say. I mean, I got nothing else to add as far as news goes, but I just wanted to bring that out. And the Dodgers and the Rays are playing their first game in the World Series tonight for anybody out there watching.
All right, cool. Yeah, we'll have to take a look at that. Oh, sorry, Trevor, your Astros suck. They lost.
Asterisk!
Asterisk lost 4-3 against Tampa.
Asterisk! Come on, Trevor, I'll kick your ass.
I was gonna say there is actually a God in the world. He actually made it right by making the Astros lose.
Made the playoffs. Where's the fucking man?
Right.
Dude, you lost to the fucking wait. Yeah, fuck. Who did they lose to? Oh, the fucking shit, help me out
The
here.
Rays.
The Rays. You lost to the fucking Rays.
Yeah.
You lost to a team that wasn't even to go to the World Series.
Oh my God.
Man.
Oh, that's news.
Season.
I forgot to mention this, is that it has now been confirmed by the MLBPA that Stephen Cohen will officially take the reins as the new owner of the New York Mets on November 1st, on Sunday. Not this Sunday, the following Sunday, when the Bills play the Patriots. That day will be when Stephen Cohen becomes the new full-time owner of the New York Mets.
Nice. All right, so now with him taking over the Mets, Bobby, what are your predictions of cleaning house?
First thing they got to do is get rid of Brody Van Wagenen, and he's trash. They gotta drain the swamp, as Donald Trump likes to say. And I know a lot of people on here don't like him, but fuck you, I don't care. I'm using his quotes. He likes to drain the swamp, and they're gonna clean up Brody Van Wagenen. They're gonna get rid of all of the useless bums that the Wilpons have signed for the last couple of years. And then Stephen Coleman, now that he's the highest paid owner, or the richest owner of all of baseball, he's now going to go out and make a splash, I guarantee you, to revamp the Mets' hopes for next season and get Francisco Lindor from the Indians. I guarantee you.
There you go. We'll have to keep an eye on that. We'll have to talk about that on the show as we go forward because I
don't even know when MLB free agency starts, but I know for a fact that the Mets are going after him, and I know for a fact they're going after Trevor Bauer, and they're also going after JT Realmuto.
Yeah, I mean, those will be great signings for them. I mean, especially now that they're going to have all the money in the world to do it. Might as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Plus, they'll actually have decent ownership for a change, too.
Oh, absolutely. And the Wilpons are done in 2 weeks, in a week and a half from now. They're done. They're done.
They overstayed their welcome.
I hate them with the burning passion. You have no idea.
Well, so does probably all of Long Island and most of New York City on top of it.
Well, mostly in the boroughs like Queens, New York City, Long Island, And it's not just in those areas, mostly in Manhattan and in the Bronx and Brooklyn. I mean, the Bronx is more of where the Stankies are from, okay? Oh, and I called you the Stankies, so suck a dick, Sean.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Where was that World Series that you were bound to win this year, huh? Where was it?
It's only a matter of time. And at least we actually made the playoffs, so sit down, Mets fan.
Oh, shut the fuck up. You were bound to get eliminated. You paid $324 million for a pitcher to choke in the playoffs.
Like I said, at least we were in the playoffs.
You lost to a team that's in the World Series.
So did the Astros.
So what?
Well, the good thing is we can shit on the Astros anytime on this show because we have a reason to. They cheat.
Shit on the Yankees. And shit on the Yankees. 27. That's all we're going to hear from Yankees fans. They'll just keep overpaying like he's the monopoly guy, and they're just going to go slap money at free agents until they actually win something.
Oh, my God.
What?
Oh, that's good. That's good. That'd be hilarious, too. We got to get Trevor on here one of these days and rip him for the Astros losing to the Rays.
Well, I wouldn't bring him on considering the fact that he's already pissed at Phillip Rivers.
Oh, God, that's another story for another time.
Yeah, they lost to the fucking Browns!
How did they pull that one off?
That's a great question.
Oh, God. Well, and of course, at least all is right in the world now. I mean, the Steelers kicked the Browns' ass last Sunday, so that's good. Which that's normally going to happen, so that's a good thing.
It's bound
Yeah,
to happen.
I think at this point, I'm pretty confident in saying that Baker Mayfield is just not an NFL quarterback. At
No,
least not
he's not.
starting quarterback. Because there's no excuse when you have a legitimate head coach and you have the roster that he has that you're just not winning. Especially again against a Pittsburgh team that, albeit is undefeated, has like a top 2 easiest schedule in the league and really has no defense outside of Minka Fitzpatrick, and their offense, like, you just have to hit Ben Roethlisberger the right way and he's going to go down for the next 2 seasons, and you really just have to cover like 2 wide receivers, and that's pretty much it. I mean, there's almost nothing to that team. And again, no offense to Pittsburgh fans. I know that they don't like to hear this, but I think honestly the Steelers are being held together by, first off, Tomlin is an amazing head coach. And so a bunch of credit has to go to him, but player and talent-wise, I mean, the thing's being held together with bubblegum and Band-Aids, essentially. I mean, again, you're talking about teams that are old and not realizing it. Their offensive line, old. Most of their defense, old. They need to get younger, and it was 100% a winnable game for the Browns, and it's on Baker Mayfield as the quarterback for not doing well.
Yeah, and actually you bring up another point, too, the Rooney family, which, I mean, they, of course, are with the Steelers. I mean, they seem to be stuck on the status quo, and this is one of those things. I mean, there's been seasons I would have thought that Tomlin would have been fired already, and they just stayed the course. They did the same thing with Bill Cowher. There's sometimes I could think of that he could have been let go, and they stayed the course. And then even prior to that. So it's one of those, I think it's good to an extent because you have that same continuity and you know what you're going to expect. But it's also a problem because you stay with the same people way too long, and you don't really move forward in terms of improving the line. And that's where they've got to improve a little bit, especially on the drafting and knowing when to say when with pulling the trigger and getting rid of people, because they just don't seem to do it. I mean, God, I remember when Todd Haley was their offensive coordinator and they kept him way too long and he was screwing up stuff with Roethlisberger. So, I mean, the Rooney family's got to be more proactive, I think, in terms of how they're managing their roster and how they're managing their personnel. And they have to, don't be afraid to take a shot at somebody sometime. They got to do it.
I guess so. Only time will tell.
Yep, absolutely. But I was going to say, we've got a good 2 hours. Does anyone want to wrap up with anything or any other points anyone wants to get out?
I do have one question. I've been seeing this on Twitter. I have no idea if this has been a realistic thing or if people are just BSing the BSing. I don't know if you guys have been seeing the tweets and the conversations about an all-Canadian division within the NHL, talking about division realignment. I don't know if any of you guys have
Oh,
been.
yeah.
Yeah, it
I've
comes
seen
up every
that.
now and then.
I mean, the latest I heard, apparently they're having a meeting on Friday. When I say meeting, I'm talking about the NHL and NHLPA. They're saying they're having a meeting about the AHL and the NHL season, and they're saying at best that the season could likely start on December 4th, but that's very unlikely at this point. But we'll find out eventually Friday. We'll get more details about that.
Yeah, and oh man, and we were talking about Derrick Henry earlier in the show. Freaking stiff arming Josh Norman the way he did.
Oh God.
Dude, he sent Norman flying, man.
He sent them to 2021.
Oh man, like, and they see all these pictures on Facebook making fun of it, dude. Oh man, that was just unbelievable.
You see the one with the Hell in the Cell cage match?
I did. Yeah, I did.
I saw that. I'm like, Sean's in love with that already.
Oh man, I hate making fun of Bills players, man. But I couldn't let this one go. That was just too funny.
As embarrassing as it was, at least we can say one thing: it wasn't Tre'Davious White.
True.
But again, just shows that we need more corner help.
Yes, desperately.
Yeah, we
We
do.
need a lot of help on defense.
Yeah.
Desperately.
Yeah, that definitely does need to happen, and they have to do it soon. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the trade deadline, see what we end up doing, because, I mean, I do think there's going to be at least one move coming up, and I wouldn't be surprised. I hope it's going to be either a tight end or a corner situation, honestly. We'll see what happens.
Well, we'll find out down the road within a week or so. We'll find out who gets traded, and I assure you that something will come up for the Buffalo Bills, but it's probably going to take some time.
Yep, for sure. So what we'll do is actually, to everyone that's been checking us out tonight, well, first and foremost, thanks for checking us out. We appreciate that. And this is episode 15, so we've done this for a little bit now. Everyone that commented, I mean, we had over 240 people watching tonight. So, thanks to you guys. We enjoy doing it. Bobby, where can everyone find you? And you have anything coming up?
Well, for sure. You can follow me on Twitter, and then you can follow me on YouTube at the Buffalo Bobcast, and you can follow me right here on Hooves Entertainment.
Cool. And Sean, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Instagram and YouTube at It's Bubba Man. Yeah, I make Buffalo Bills content, and coming soon, I'll be doing some gaming videos as well, from Let's Plays to like gaming talks, all that stuff. So I'm really looking forward to doing that.
Your name alone sounds like someone's drowning. Help me!
Hey, Ryan, I know you're going to be kicking off a podcast in the near future, too. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of the Pat McAfee show, and I went to college with a bunch of different dudes who are all football fans. Some of them Pittsburgh Steelers fans, who I constantly argue with. So, but they're really cool, and so I'm putting together a group of them as well as some others. We're going to be talking pretty much everything football, in the same style as the Pat McAfee show. We're going to be talking about sports betting. We're going to be talking about fantasy football. We're going to be talking about the actual games themselves. And so that's something that I'm working on right now. But I'm also looking to get back to work with my co-host Cody at the Rivalry Podcast. We're planning on recording an episode soon, and it'll be the first one since post-COVID. So there's a lot that I have in the works right now, and I'll definitely keep you guys updated. But Matt, if you ever need anybody to talk video games with, I will 100% come on and talk with you about that stuff. So just hit me up, let me know. But yeah, so I have a lot of stuff that I'm working on right now.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
And before we go, my bad.
Yeah, what's up?
My bad.
No,
real quick.
Cool.
Real quick. Fantasy football.
Fuck you! I'll tell you.
My team right now is a disaster. Actually, all three of my teams are a disaster.
I mean, for me, who's not really into fantasy sports, I'm on a freaking roll here.
If I did something for once.
Right. Yeah, let's see. I'm getting totally decimated on one of my teams. I can't even buy any damn players I want. And I'm like, everybody I have is getting hurt. And I've had at least 3 players that have blown their ACL out. So I'm like, that's even better.
I'm going to draft Jimmy G.
Oh, and Bob,
Oh, God.
don't we have a sponsor for this episode?
Oh, my
Yeah.
God. Thank you so much.
You gotta mention that
You're an
before.
asshole, okay? You're an asshole for not reminding me. Thank you
Your
so
ass is
much.
probably not gonna be feeling good after you drink what you're gonna talk about.
Listen, I'm going to take a shit eventually. It's inevitable. I drank a whole pint of it during the show.
Yeah, I didn't need to know about what you did
Idea
with
what
Josh's Jacks when you tried that and it turned everything blue.
Blue? Yeah, that was Josh's Jacks, not apple cider.
Yeah, blue dye number 6.
Yeah, you'll probably getting doubles after you ate that tonight, guarantee you. You'll probably blow up the toilet, I would imagine. Anyway,
Hey,
so,
I'm not EVP here.
I don't care.
Yeah,
You feel
but you actually
good.
you have it right here. So
See, there you go. And you open the box. And anyway, so tonight's sponsor is by Stop and Shop's Premium Apple Cider, the perfect drink during the fall where you can take a big shit while carving a pumpkin. So for this Halloween, get yourself a glass of apple cider and draw a picture of Tom's face on your pumpkin this evening. For a special TV offer, I will throw in Bubba Matt's face on here. Hey, what's up, guys? Big Fresh, I'm sorry, Bubba Matt here.
nice.
And also, there's one more thing. You can get my face on the pumpkin.
What, you want your face on an ass? No, we don't.
Oh, no. You're trying to get us in trouble, bro.
That did not even happen, I promise.
Yeah, luckily we didn't see your ass that one time on the feed when we uploaded it
Oh,
because it was the
gosh.
speaker view.
Oh, you mean the one time where I was like really hyper?
Yeah, when you actually showed everybody your ass crack on live video.
I didn't show everyone my ass crack. I
All
just
4 of us saw it. I mean, luckily what happened is it was a speaker view, so the audience didn't see it. We actually got blessed with seeing your hairy ass.
And thanks for sharing in front of everybody, you dumbass. Hey guys, we saw Bobby's ass.
God. No, actually, we spared the viewers that. We actually got to see it, unfortunately.
At least they came back.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. So,
Yeah.
man. Oh, God. And then, of course, where people can find me, of course, we've got Horns and Hooves Entertainment. We've got hornsandhooves.net. Check out our site. We have that up and running now. And then, of course, you get to see episodes of our show. Well, the ones that are not copyright strike possibilities, we'll have them on there. And then, which actually the 4-hour draft episode we can't upload because we had Jimi Hendrix and Van Halen playing through part of it and other stuff. So, unfortunately. But plus, it would take about 2 days to upload probably. But anyways, Tom Wichik Show on YouTube. Check it out. I'm going to try to do some new episodes fairly soon. And, of course, we got the Twitter at Horns and Hooves ENT. So check that out. We got some, scores and different things that come out during the week. So, check us out.
All right.
So, with that being said, of course, for Buffalo Bob Hansen, we got Sean, Ryan, myself. Take care of yourselves and each other. It was great seeing you guys.
All right. See y'all later.
That's Padania.